Tonight, we will journey together through life-changing Buddhist tales that have illuminated the path to freedom for 2,500 years. These are stories the Buddha himself told, teachings his disciples carried across continents, wisdom that has transformed countless lives from suffering into peace. Before we begin, feel free to share where you are listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Know that right now, thousands of souls across the globe are settling into this same journey, opening their hearts to the Buddha's wisdom, releasing the weight they have been carrying for far too long. May these teachings bring you freedom. Freedom from the anxious thoughts that steal your peace. Freedom from the worries that grip your heart through sleepless nights. Freedom from the endless striving that leaves you exhausted and empty. Tonight, you can rest in the Buddha's wisdom, knowing that the peace you seek is not somewhere distant but here, now, waiting to be recognized in this very moment. There is nothing you need to do tonight except listen. You do not need to remember these stories or understand every teaching. You do not need to become enlightened or achieve some special state. You simply need to allow your body to be held by whatever surface supports you and let these ancient tales wash over you like healing water, slowly dissolving the tension you carry, gently opening the tight places in your heart. Your only task tonight is to receive, to soften, to allow these life-changing teachings to work their magic in the deep places of your being. The Buddha discovered something remarkable 2,500 years ago as he sat beneath the Bodhi tree. He discovered that all human suffering comes from the same source: our resistance to reality, our clinging to what we love, and our pushing away of what we fear, our constant demand that life be different than it is. And in that discovery, he found the path to freedom. Not a path of escaping life, but a path of meeting life exactly as it is, with wisdom and compassion. Tonight, through these tales, we will walk that path together. Breathe slowly now. Feel your chest rise and fall. This breath moving through you requires no effort. Your heart beats without your instruction. Your body knows how to heal and rest and renew itself without your management. Life is living itself through you right now. Tonight, you can trust this completely. You can release your grip on control and simply be held by the great intelligence that keeps stars in their orbits and seasons in their rhythm. Let us begin with our first life-changing tale. Long ago, in a time when the Buddha still walked the earth, there came to him a woman named Kisa Gotami, who was mad with grief. She carried in her arms the body of her infant son who had died suddenly from illness. For 3 days, she had wandered from house to house, begging people to give her medicine to revive her child, unable to accept that he was gone. The villagers, seeing her state, directed her to the Buddha, hoping the great teacher could help her understand what they could not make her accept. Kisa Gotami came before the Buddha, her eyes wild with grief and denial, clutching her dead child to her chest. "Great teacher," she cried, "they say you have miraculous powers. Please, give me medicine to bring my son back to life. I cannot bear this. I will not accept this. He is my only child. My life has no meaning without him." The Buddha looked at her with infinite compassion. He did not tell her that her son was dead. He did not try to make her accept what she was not ready to accept. Instead, he said gently, "I can help you. But first, you must bring me something. Go into the village and bring me a handful of mustard seeds from any household that has never experienced death." Kisa Gotami felt a surge of hope. She carefully laid her son's body down and ran into the village, going from house to house. At the first house, she knocked and said, "The Buddha needs mustard seeds from a household that has never known death. Can you help me?" The family looked at her with sadness. "We have mustard seeds in abundance," they said, "but we cannot help you. Just last year, the grandmother who raised us died. Our household has known death." Kisa Gotami moved to the next house, and the next. At each door, the answer was the same. "Yes, we have mustard seeds. But we have also known death. A father lost to illness, a sister taken by fever, a child who did not survive infancy, a husband killed in war. Every household in the village had been touched by death. As the sun began to set, Kisa Gotami had visited every home in the village. She had not collected a single mustard seed, but something else had been collected in her heart. She had heard story after story of loss, of grief, of beloved ones who had died, and slowly, through the fog of her own pain, she began to understand what the Buddha had been trying to teach her. Death is not a punishment visited upon her alone. It is not evidence that she had done something wrong or that the universe was cruel. Death is simply part of life. Every person she met had lost someone they loved. Every household had known this grief. She was not alone in her suffering. She was part of the great family of humanity, all of whom must face loss, all of whom must say goodbye to those they love. Kisa Gotami returned to the Buddha as darkness fell. She did not have the mustard seeds, but she had something far more valuable. She had understanding. She knelt before the Buddha, no longer clutching her son's body with desperate denial, but holding him gently, ready to let him go. "Great teacher," she said quietly, "I could not find a single household untouched by death. I see now what you were trying to show me. I am not alone in this grief. All beings must face loss. All parents must say goodbye to their children, or children to their parents. This is the nature of life." The Buddha nodded, his eyes filled with compassion. "Yes, you have learned what I could not simply tell you. Life and death are inseparable. To love is to know that loss will come. This is not a punishment, it is simply reality. But now, tell me, does understanding this truth make your grief disappear?" Kisa Gotami shook her head. "No, great teacher. My heart still aches. I still miss my son. The pain is still here." "Good," the Buddha said. "You should grieve. Love and grief are two sides of the same coin. To love deeply is to grieve deeply when loss comes. But there is a difference between grief and suffering. Grief is the natural response to loss, clean and pure and necessary. Suffering is what we add to grief when we resist reality, when we demand that what has happened should not have happened, when we fight against the truth that is already true." He gestured for her to sit beside him. "You have been suffering, not just grieving. You have been fighting against the reality that your son is dead, demanding that the universe give him back, refusing to accept what is already true. This resistance, this fight against reality, this is suffering, and this kind of suffering serves no purpose. It does not honor your son. It does not ease your pain. It only creates a second layer of pain on top of the natural grief." Kisa Gotami felt something shift in her chest. She realized that for 3 days she had been fighting reality with every ounce of her strength, exhausting herself in a battle that could never be won. Her son was dead, this was true, and no amount of resistance would change it. But she could choose to stop fighting. She could choose to accept reality and grieve cleanly rather than suffer endlessly. "What should I do now?" she asked. The Buddha smiled gently. "Now you should give your son a proper burial. You should allow yourself to grieve fully, to feel the pain of your loss without resistance. You should remember him with love, honor the time you had together, and gradually, in your own time, learn to carry his memory in your heart without carrying the weight of resistance. And know that you are not alone. Every being who has ever loved has walked this path of grief. You walk it now in the company of all humanity." Kisa Gotami performed the funeral rites for her son with a heart that was breaking but no longer fighting. She wept deeply, but her tears were clean tears of grief, not the bitter tears of resistance. And in the months and years that followed, though she continued to miss her son, though the ache of his absence never fully disappeared, she found that she could carry this grief without being crushed by it. She could remember him with love instead of with desperate clinging. She could honor his brief life instead of raging against his death. She became one of the Buddha's most devoted students, and in time, she attained deep peace. Not because her grief disappeared, but because she learned to meet it with acceptance rather than resistance. She learned that peace does not require the absence of pain. It requires the acceptance of reality exactly as it is. This tale of Kisa Gautami holds within it a teaching that can transform your life. The Buddha saw that we create suffering by fighting against reality. When something painful happens, we have pain. This is natural, unavoidable. But then we add suffering on top of the pain by demanding that reality should be different. We say, "This should not have happened. This is not fair. I cannot accept this." And in that resistance, we create a second layer of pain that serves no purpose except to exhaust us. Feel into your own life now. What reality are you fighting against? What truth are you refusing to accept? Perhaps it is something from your past that you keep replaying, wishing it had gone differently. Perhaps it is something about your present circumstances that you keep resisting, demanding that it change. Perhaps it is something about yourself that you cannot forgive or accept. Whatever it is, notice how fighting against it feels in your body. There is tension, there is exhaustion, there is the endless drain of energy that comes from battling what is already true. What would it feel like to stop fighting? Not to approve of what happened, not to call it good or right, but simply to stop resisting the fact that it is already true? This is the Buddha's teaching of acceptance. Not passive resignation, but clear-eyed recognition of reality, followed by wise response rather than endless resistance. Breathe slowly now. As you exhale, imagine releasing just a little bit of the fight. You do not have to release it all at once. Just a little softening, a slight easing of the grip. Notice what happens in your body when you stop fighting, even for just this one breath. Let us continue with another life-changing teaching from the Buddha. There was once a man named Angulimala, who was one of the most feared criminals in ancient India. He had killed 999 people, and he wore a gruesome necklace made from one finger taken from each victim. His name, Angulimala, meant finger garland. He had been a student of a corrupt teacher who convinced him that by killing 1,000 people, he would attain spiritual powers. Now he needed just one more victim to complete his terrible task. One day, Angulimala saw a monk walking alone on a forest path. Perfect, he thought. An easy final victim. He grabbed his sword and ran after the monk, intending to kill him quickly. But something strange happened. Though Angulimala was running as fast as he could, and though the monk was walking calmly at a normal pace, Angulimala could not catch up. No matter how fast he ran, the monk remained the same distance ahead. Finally, exhausted and confused, Angulimala called out, "Stop, monk, stand still." The monk, who was the Buddha himself, turned and said calmly, "I am standing still. It is you who cannot stop." Angulimala was baffled. "What do you mean? I am running and you are walking. How can you say you are still and I am the one who cannot stop?" The Buddha looked at him with infinite compassion. "I have stopped causing harm to living beings. I have stopped running after desires that can never satisfy. I have stopped the endless cycle of craving and hatred that drives beings into suffering. But you, even when your body stops running, your mind continues to run. You run after violence, after the delusion that killing will bring you power, after the endless dissatisfaction that can never be filled by harming others. You are a man who cannot stop." Something in these words pierced through Angulimala's violent confusion. For the first time in years, he really looked at what he had become. A man who had killed 999 innocent people. A man so lost in delusion that he believed murder would lead to spiritual attainment. A man who could not stop running toward his own destruction. He dropped his sword and fell to his knees. "What have I done?" he whispered. "I am a monster. I am beyond redemption. There is no hope for someone like me." But the Buddha said something that would change Angulimala's life forever. Even you can be transformed. Even you can find peace. The worst actions of your past do not define what you must be in your future. If you are willing to stop, to truly stop the cycle of harm and begin the path of transformation, I will teach you. Angulimala looked up, tears streaming down his face. "But, teacher, I have killed 999 people. How can there be any hope for someone who has done what I have done?" The Buddha sat down on the path beside this mass murderer and spoke with the same gentle patience he showed to all beings. "The past is already gone. Those actions have been done and cannot be undone. But you have a choice about what happens next. You can continue on the path of harm, killing one more person and sealing your fate. Or you can stop right now, in this moment, and begin to walk a different path. The choice is always available. In every moment, you can choose to cause harm or to stop causing harm. Which do you choose now?" Angulimala felt something break open inside him. All his life, he had believed he was trapped by his past, that the terrible things he had done meant he was irredeemably evil. But the Buddha was offering him something revolutionary, the possibility of change. Not because his past actions did not matter, but because the present moment always offers a choice. He could not undo the past, but he could stop creating more suffering right now. "I choose to stop," Angulimala said. "I choose transformation. Please, teach me." And the Buddha did teach him. Angulimala became a monk, devoting the rest of his life to meditation, compassion, and service. The transformation was not easy. He had to face the families of his victims. He had to carry the weight of what he had done. When he walked through villages, people would throw stones at him, curse him, refuse him food. But he accepted this as the natural consequence of his actions. He never responded with anger or violence. He had truly stopped. In time, through dedicated practice, Angulimala attained enlightenment. He found complete peace, not because his past was erased, but because he learned that who he had been did not determine who he must be. He learned that transformation is always possible for those willing to truly stop the cycle of harm and begin walking the path of wisdom. This teaching is life-changing because it speaks to a truth many of us resist, that we are not permanently defined by our past. Yes, our past actions have consequences. Yes, we must face and accept what we have done, but we are not trapped. In every moment, we have the choice to stop causing harm, to stop running in destructive patterns, to begin walking a different path. Feel into this teaching now. What pattern in your life have you been running? What cycle keeps repeating because you believe you cannot stop? Perhaps it is a pattern of self-harm, of negative self-talk that cuts you down again and again. Perhaps it is a pattern of harming relationships, pushing away the people you love because you learned long ago that closeness is dangerous. Perhaps it is a pattern of addiction, of reaching for something that promises relief but delivers only more suffering. The Buddha's teaching to Angulimala is his teaching to you. You can stop. Right now, in this moment, you can choose differently. You are not trapped by your past patterns. They do not define what you must do next. In this very moment, you have the power to stop running and begin standing still in wisdom. Breathe gently now. Let your body settle a little deeper into rest. You are not the sum of your past actions. You are not trapped by old patterns. In this moment, you can choose peace. You can choose to stop the cycles that no longer serve you. And in that stopping, transformation becomes possible. Let us journey now to another powerful teaching from the Buddha. In the ancient city of Savatthi, there lived a wealthy merchant who had everything the world considers valuable. He had gold, property, a beautiful family, respect in the community. But despite all this, he was deeply unhappy. He would lie awake at night, consumed by worry that he might lose his wealth, worry that his competitors would surpass him, worry that his children would squander his fortune, worry that he was not accumulating enough, achieving enough, becoming enough. One day, this merchant heard the Buddha was teaching in a grove outside the city. Desperate for relief from his constant anxiety, he went to listen. The Buddha was teaching about the nature of suffering, and the merchant heard these words that would change his life. All suffering comes from craving and attachment. We suffer because we cling to what is pleasant and push away what is unpleasant. We suffer because we demand that impermanent things be permanent. We suffer because we try to build security on foundations that are constantly shifting. After the teaching, the merchant approached the Buddha privately. "Great teacher," he said, "I have everything a man could want, yet I am miserable. I lie awake every night, gripped by anxiety. I cannot enjoy what I have because I am constantly afraid of losing it. Please, tell me how to find peace." The Buddha looked at him with knowing eyes. "Tell me, when you acquired your first piece of gold, did that bring you lasting peace?" The merchant thought back. "No. For a moment I felt satisfied, but then I immediately began to worry about losing it and to desire more." "And when you acquired more gold, when your wealth grew, did that bring lasting peace?" "No," the merchant admitted. "With each increase in wealth came an increase in worry, more to protect, more to lose, more to desire. And if you acquired even more wealth, if you became the richest man in all of India, would that bring lasting peace?" The merchant suddenly saw the truth clearly. No, it would only create more anxiety. The pattern would never end. The Buddha nodded. "This is what I call the trap of craving. You believe that if you just get enough, have enough, achieve enough, you will finally feel secure and at peace. But this enough never arrives. Because the problem is not in what you have or don't have. The problem is in the craving itself, in the belief that external things can provide internal security." He picked up a handful of sand and let it slowly slip through his fingers. "Look at this sand. Can you hold it permanently? No. The tighter you grip, the faster it flows away. This is the nature of all conditioned things. They arise and they pass. They change and transform. Nothing in the material world can provide permanent security, because nothing in the material world is permanent." The merchant felt both despair and curiosity. "But teacher, if nothing external can provide security, where can security be found? How can I live without this constant anxiety?" The Buddha smiled. "Security is found not in accumulating and controlling external things, but in understanding the nature of reality and releasing your grip on the demand for permanence. When you accept that everything changes, that all things arise and pass, that loss is inevitable. Paradoxically, you find a deeper security. Not the false security of believing you can control the uncontrollable, but the true security of knowing you can meet whatever comes with wisdom and resilience." He continued, "Right now, you are like a man trying to build a house on the surface of a river, frustrated that the foundation keeps washing away. But if you understand that the river's nature is to flow, you stop trying to build on water. You find a different kind of ground. You find ground within yourself that is not dependent on external circumstances remaining fixed." The merchant sat in silence, feeling something shift within him. "But teacher, how do I find this internal ground? How do I stop the craving that drives me?" "Through practice," the Buddha said. "Through learning to be present with what is actually here, rather than constantly reaching for what is not here or pushing away what is here. Through understanding that each moment is complete in itself, requiring nothing added. Through seeing directly that the peace you seek is not in the future when you finally have enough, but in this present moment when you stop demanding that this moment be different than it is." Over the following months, the merchant became a devoted student of the Buddha's teachings. He learned to meditate, to watch the constant arising and passing of thoughts and sensations without clinging to the pleasant or resisting the unpleasant. He learned to notice when craving arose in his mind and to see it clearly for what it was, a mental pattern that created suffering, not a truth about reality. Gradually, his relationship with his wealth transformed completely. He still worked and managed his business, but he no longer identified his security with his possessions. He could enjoy what he had without being attached to it. He could lose money without losing his peace. He found that the security he had been seeking through accumulation was actually available in every moment through acceptance. One night, years after his first meeting with the Buddha, the merchant lay down to sleep and realized something remarkable. For the first time in decades, his mind was quiet. Not because his circumstances were perfect, but because he had stopped demanding that they be perfect. Not because he had achieved complete control over his life, but because he had released the need for control. He had found the internal ground the Buddha had spoken of, and it was more secure than all the gold in his treasury. This teaching speaks to something deep within modern life. We are told constantly that security comes from accumulation. Get more money, more possessions, more achievements, more followers, more of everything, and finally, you will feel secure. But the Buddha saw through this lie 2,500 years ago. The more we have, the more we have to protect. The more we achieve, the more we fear losing. The ladder of accumulation has no top rung where we can finally rest. There is always more to strive for, more to worry about losing. True security comes from a different source. It comes from understanding that everything changes, that loss is inevitable, and that we can meet this reality with wisdom rather than fear. It comes from finding a sense of okayness that is not dependent on external circumstances being a certain way. It comes from being present with this moment exactly as it is, rather than constantly reaching for a better future moment. Feel into your own life now. Where are you seeking security through accumulation? Through getting more, achieving more, becoming more? Notice how that seeking feels. There is a tension to it, a never quite satisfied quality, a sense that peace is always just one more achievement away. What would it feel like to release that seeking? Not to stop working or growing, but to release the belief that your peace depends on external circumstances being a certain way. Breathe slowly. Feel your body resting here. In this moment, you have enough air to breathe. You have a surface supporting your body. You have the capacity to be aware. This moment, exactly as it is enough. Not because it is perfect, but because it is what is actually true. And when you stop fighting what is true and simply allow yourself to be present with it, something softens. A false kind of seeking can release, and a truer kind of peace can emerge. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let your jaw become soft. Let your hands rest open and relaxed. You are not holding on to anything right now. You are not reaching for anything. You are simply here, breathing, being. And in this simple being, there is a security that no amount of accumulation could ever provide. Let us continue our journey through the Buddha's life-changing wisdom with another profound teaching. One day, a man came to the Buddha filled with rage. He had heard that the Buddha was teaching that we should respond to hatred with love, to anger with compassion, to violence with peace. This enraged the man, who believed that such teachings made people weak and defenseless. Standing before the Buddha in front of many disciples, this angry man began to shout insults. He called the Buddha a fool, a charlatan, a deceiver who was misleading people with dangerous nonsense. He hurled every cruel word he could think of, his face red with fury, spit flying from his mouth as he screamed his hatred. The Buddha sat perfectly still, his face calm and peaceful, simply listening. He did not react, did not defend himself, did not match anger with anger. He simply sat in quiet presence while the man exhausted his rage. Finally, having run out of insults, the man stood there breathing heavily, waiting for the Buddha's response. After a long moment of silence, the Buddha asked gently, "Tell me, if someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The angry man was confused by this question. "If I refuse a gift, it still belongs to the giver, of course." The Buddha nodded. "Yes, and so it is with your anger and your insults. I do not accept them. Therefore, they remain with you. You have spent all this energy trying to give me your anger, but I have not received it, so you must keep it." The man stood there, stunned. He had thrown everything he had at the Buddha, expecting anger in return, expecting a fight, expecting some response that would justify his rage. But the Buddha had simply not participated. He had not picked up the anger being offered to him, and in that refusal to engage, the anger had nowhere to go. It simply dissolved. The Buddha continued, "When someone speaks to you with anger, you have a choice. You can pick up that anger and carry it as if it were a gift you must accept. Or you can leave it with the person who brought it. Their anger is their suffering. You need not make it your suffering as well." He looked at the man with infinite compassion. "You came here hoping to hurt me, to disturb my peace, to make me as angry as you are. But I cannot be made angry by your words, because I understand that your anger comes from your own suffering. You are a person in pain, and pain often expresses itself as anger. I have compassion for your suffering, but I will not accept your anger as mine." The angry man felt something crack open in his chest. He had spent years carrying rage, letting other people's words and actions fill him with fury that poisoned his own peace. He had believed that when someone tried to hurt him, he had to pick up that hurt and carry it, had to respond with equal or greater force. But the Buddha was showing him something revolutionary, that he could simply refuse to accept what was being offered, that he could let others keep their anger while he maintained his peace. The man fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Teacher," he said, his voice breaking, "I have wasted so many years in anger. Every insult, every slight, every perceived attack. I picked them all up and carried them, letting them poison my heart. I thought I was being strong by responding to anger with anger, but I see now that I was only multiplying suffering. Please, teach me how to find the peace you have." The Buddha smiled with warmth. "You have already taken the first step. You have seen that anger is optional, that you can choose whether to pick it up or leave it alone. Now you must practice this choice again and again. Each time anger arises, whether from within or offered by another, you pause. You recognize, this is anger, and you choose whether to identify with it and act from it, or to simply observe it and let it pass like a cloud across the sky." In the months that followed, this man became one of the Buddha's most dedicated students. He learned to watch anger arise in his own mind without being controlled by it. He learned to meet others' anger with compassion rather than with matching rage. And gradually, the years of accumulated fury that had poisoned his life began to dissolve, leaving behind a peace he had never imagined possible. This teaching is life-changing because it reveals something most of us never consider, that we do not have to accept what others try to give us. When someone speaks to you with anger, with criticism, with cruelty, they are offering you a gift of suffering, but you can refuse that gift. You can let them keep their anger while you maintain your peace. Their words are just sounds in the air. They only have the power you give them. They only become your reality if you accept them as yours. Think about the last time someone spoke to you with anger or cruelty. What did you do? Most likely, you picked up that anger. You accepted it as if you had no choice. You let their words disturb your peace, create turmoil in your mind, maybe even influence how you spoke to others afterward. You became a carrier of the anger they offered, spreading it further. But the Buddha is teaching you something different. When anger comes toward you, you can observe it with compassion, understanding that this person is suffering while not absorbing their suffering into yourself. You can remain grounded in peace while acknowledging their pain. This is not coldness or indifference, it is wisdom. It is the understanding that taking on someone else's anger does not help them and only harms you. Feel into this teaching now. Imagine someone speaking to you with anger or criticism. Instead of immediately reacting, instead of letting their words penetrate and disturb your peace, imagine simply observing. There is anger here. There are harsh words. And you can acknowledge this without picking it up. You can let the anger remain with the person who brought it. You can maintain your own peace while having compassion for their suffering. Breathe slowly. Notice any remaining tension in your body, any holding that relates to anger you have picked up from others or from your own harsh inner voice. As you exhale, imagine setting that anger down, not yours to carry. Never was yours to carry. Just anger that passed through your life, and you mistakenly believed you had to hold on to it. Let your body become even heavier now, sinking deeper into rest. Your jaw can be completely soft. Your tongue can rest gently in your mouth. Your eyes, beneath closed lids, can settle into their sockets. Every muscle in your face can release its holding. You are not trying to be anyone right now. Not trying to prove anything. Not defending against anything. Just being here. Breathing. Resting. Let us continue with another essential teaching from the Buddha's wisdom. One day, a father came to the Buddha in great distress. His son had become a monk, against his wishes, and the father was consumed with anger and disappointment. He had hoped his son would take over the family business, carry on the family name, give him grandchildren. Instead, his son had abandoned worldly life to wander with a begging bowl, seeking enlightenment. "Your teachings have ruined my family," the father shouted at the Buddha. "You have stolen my son from me. He had a duty to me, to his family, to our ancestors, and you have made him break that duty with your talk of renunciation and enlightenment." The Buddha listened patiently, then asked, "Tell me, do you love your son?" The father was taken aback. "Of course I love my son. That is why I am so angry that you have taken him from me." The Buddha nodded slowly. "And when you say you love your son, what do you mean? Do you love who he actually is? Or do you love the image you created of who you wanted him to be?" The father opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. He had never considered this distinction before. The Buddha continued gently. "You had a vision of your son's life. He would run the business. He would marry and give you grandchildren. He would fulfill certain roles and duties. And you called this love, but this was not love for your son as he actually is. This was love for your own idea of who he should be. And now that he has chosen a different path, you experience this as loss. But what have you actually lost? You have lost an image, a fantasy, an expectation. Your son is still here. He is still alive. He is actually pursuing what he believes will bring him lasting peace and happiness. The only thing that has died is your idea of who he should be." The father felt something tighten in his chest. "But I wanted what was best for him," he protested, though his voice had lost its anger and carried only pain. "Did you?" the Buddha asked, not unkindly. "Or did you want what would be best for you? What would bring you pride, security, continuation of your legacy? These are not bad desires, they are human. But let us be honest about them. You are suffering not because your son is harmed, but because your expectations have not been met. Your son is actually very happy. He has found a path that brings him peace. The one who is suffering is you. And you are suffering because you are attached to a particular vision of how his life should unfold." The Buddha leaned forward slightly. "Here is the teaching that can change your life. True love does not demand that another person fulfill our expectations. True love does not require that someone be other than they are in order for us to accept them. True love recognizes and honors the other person's own path, even when it is not the path we would have chosen for them." He paused, letting these words sink in. "Your son has not betrayed you. He has been true to himself. The pain you feel comes from your attachment to a particular outcome, a particular story of how his life should go. If you can release that attachment, if you can love your son as he actually is rather than as you wanted him to be, you will find that you have not lost him at all. He is right here. You can have a relationship with the son you have, or you can suffer over the loss of the son you imagined, but you cannot have both." The father stood in silence for a long time. He felt years of expectations beginning to crumble, and beneath them, he found something surprising. Genuine curiosity about who his son actually was. Not who he had wanted him to be, but who he really was. What brought him joy? What did he value? What did he long for? The father realized he had never really asked these questions. He had been too busy trying to shape his son into a particular form. "How do I do this?" the father asked quietly. "How do I let go of my expectations and just love him as he is?" The Buddha smiled. "You begin by noticing when you are loving your idea of someone rather than the person themselves. You notice when you are demanding that reality conform to your preferences rather than accepting reality as it is. And when you notice this, you practice releasing, not because you do not care, but because you understand that real love does not require control. Real love is spacious enough to allow another person to be fully themselves, to walk their own path, to make their own choices, even when those choices are not what we would prefer." The father returned many times to speak with the Buddha, and gradually his relationship with his son transformed. He stopped trying to convince his son to return to worldly life. He stopped grieving for the grandchildren he would not have, the business successor he had lost. Instead, he began to know his son as he actually was, a sincere spiritual seeker who had found genuine peace in renunciation. And in releasing his attachment to who his son should be, the father found that he could finally experience real connection with who his son actually was. This teaching is life-changing because it reveals how much of our suffering comes from loving our ideas about people rather than the people themselves. We create images of who our partners should be, who our children should be, who our friends should be, who our parents should be. And when these people do not conform to our images, we suffer. We call this suffering love, but it is not love, it is attachment. It is the demand that reality match our preferences. Real love is something entirely different. Real love has space in it. It allows the other person to be fully themselves, to change, to grow, to choose paths we would not have chosen for them. Real love does not require that someone meet our expectations in order to be worthy of acceptance. It sees and honors the person who is actually here, not the person we wish were here. Think about your own relationships right now. Who are you loving as an idea rather than as a reality? Where are you demanding that someone be different than they are in order for you to fully accept them? Your partner should be more affectionate, more ambitious, more organized, more spontaneous. Your children should make different choices. Your parents should have been different than they were. Your friends should be more available, more understanding, more aligned with your values. All of this is the suffering of attachment to expectations, and beneath all these expectations is a simple belief. Things should be different than they are. This person should be different. This situation should be different. My life should be different. And this belief creates constant friction with reality, constant suffering. The Buddha's teaching is revolutionary. What if you loved reality as it is rather than demanding it be different? What if you loved the people in your life as they actually are, rather than as you wish they were? This does not mean you cannot have preferences. It does not mean you cannot hope for things to change or work toward positive growth, but it means you do not withhold your love, your acceptance, your peace, until reality conforms to your demands. Practice this now in your own heart. Bring to mind someone you have been struggling with, someone you have been wishing were different. And instead of focusing on how they should change, simply notice them as they are. This is a human being with their own fears, wounds, longings, limitations. They are doing the best they can with the consciousness and resources they have. They are not here to fulfill your expectations. They are here to walk their own path, just as you are here to walk yours. Can you release the demand that they be different? Can you create space for them to be exactly as they are, while still honoring your own needs and boundaries? Can you love reality as it is rather than suffering over the reality you wish existed? Feel your breath moving in your body now. Notice how breathing requires no expectation, no demand. Your lungs do not insist that air be anything other than what it is. They simply receive what is offered and release what is complete. This is the natural way. This is how love flows, when it is not blocked by attachment to particular outcomes. Your whole body can rest in this understanding now. Nothing to fix, nothing to control, no one to change. Just this moment, exactly as it is. Your shoulders can drop another inch. Your belly can be completely soft. Every muscle can release its holding. You are enough. This moment is enough. The people in your life are enough. Everything is unfolding exactly as it must. Let us journey deeper into the Buddha's transformative wisdom. There was once a woman named Patakara who had what most would consider a perfect life. She was born into a wealthy family, married a good man, had 2 healthy children. Her days were filled with comfort and joy. She believed she had found lasting happiness, that she had built a life that would always sustain her. But life, as the Buddha taught, is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever, and no amount of careful planning can prevent loss. One year, during the rainy season, Patakara was traveling with her husband and 2 young children to visit her parents. The river they needed to cross was swollen from heavy rains, the current dangerously strong. Her husband decided to take the children across one at a time. He took the older child first, leaving Patakara on the bank with the baby. Halfway across the river, a terrible thing happened. The current was stronger than her husband realized, and it swept him away. Patakara watched in horror as her husband disappeared beneath the rushing water. She screamed, but the sound was lost in the roar of the river. Her older child, alone on the far bank, began to cry. Panicked, knowing she had to reach her older child, Patakara wrapped her baby tightly and plunged into the river. The current pulled at her, but she fought her way across, driven by a mother's desperate need to protect her children. She reached the far bank and set the baby down safely, then turned to comfort her older child. But a hawk, seeing the unattended infant, swooped down. Before Patakara could react, the bird seized the baby and flew away. Patakara ran after it, screaming, but it was too late. She returned to find her older child had wandered toward the river in fear and confusion, and he too had been swept away by the current. In one terrible hour, Patakara had lost her husband and both her children. Mad with grief, she wandered for days, barely aware of where she was going. She finally reached her parents' village, hoping to find some comfort, some refuge from her overwhelming loss. But when she arrived, she found their house burned to the ground. A neighbor told her that during a storm, lightning had struck the house, and her parents and brothers had all perished in the fire. In the span of a few days, Patakara had lost everything. Every person she loved, every anchor of her identity. She had been a wife, now widowed. She had been a mother, now childless. She had been a daughter and sister, now an orphan. The life she had built, the identity she had constructed, the future she had imagined, all of it was gone. She wandered like a ghost, her mind shattered, her grief so complete that people who saw her were frightened. Some threw stones, trying to drive away this mad woman. Others turned away in discomfort. No one could reach her in the depths of her anguish. Then one day, she wandered into a place where the Buddha was teaching. Even in her madness, something drew her to sit at the edge of the crowd. The Buddha was speaking about the nature of loss, about impermanence, about how we suffer when we cling to things that cannot last. All things are impermanent, the Buddha said. Everything that arises will pass away. Every person born will die. Every relationship will end, either through death or separation. Every moment of joy will give way to another moment. This is not a tragedy. This is simply the nature of existence. When we resist this truth, when we demand that things remain as they are, we create suffering. When we accept this truth, we find peace even in the midst of loss. Something in his words reached through Patakara's grief. She found herself listening. The Buddha looked at her directly, as if he could see into her heart, and he spoke to her as much as to the crowd. The amount you grieve is equal to the amount you have loved, he said gently. And love is beautiful. Love is what makes us human. But when we attach to what we love, when we believe it should last forever, When we demand that nothing ever change, we set ourselves up for profound suffering, because change is the only constant. Loss is inevitable. Nothing in this world is ours to keep. Patakara felt something crack open inside her. She had been railing against reality itself, demanding that her children be alive, that her husband be alive, that her parents be alive. She had been fighting the fundamental nature of existence, insisting that things should be different than they were. And this resistance, this refusal to accept what was, had been multiplying her suffering beyond measure. She approached the Buddha after the teaching, fell at his feet, and told him her story. When she finished, the Buddha looked at her with infinite compassion. "You have lost much," he said, "and your grief is natural and right. But tell me, which has caused you more pain, the loss itself, or your refusal to accept the loss?" Patakara understood immediately. The deaths of her loved ones were terrible, painful, heart-shattering. But what had driven her to madness was not the deaths themselves. It was her insistence that they should not have died, her demand that reality be different, her battle against what had already happened. Her grief had been pure and clean at first, but she had transformed it into something that destroyed her by refusing to accept what was. "But how can I accept such loss?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. "How can I live with this pain?" The Buddha said, "You do not have to make the pain go away. You do not have to pretend you are not suffering. You simply stop fighting against what is. You let reality be what it is. You feel your grief without adding resistance to it. You mourn without demanding that your mourning change anything. And gradually, in accepting what is, you find that you can carry it, not because the pain diminishes, but because you stop making it heavier by resisting it." Became one of his disciples. She never stopped missing her children, her husband, her family, but she stopped fighting against their absence. She let her grief be what it was, a natural response to loss, without transforming it into madness through resistance. And in time, she found a peace she had never known, even in her happy life before the losses. Because this peace did not depend on circumstances being a certain way. It was a peace that could hold everything, even grief, without breaking. This is perhaps the most life-changing teaching the Buddha offered, that acceptance is not the same as approval. You do not have to like what has happened. You do not have to think it is good or right or fair, but you can stop fighting against what already is. You can let reality be what it is without adding resistance to your pain. Most of us spend enormous energy resisting reality. This should not have happened. That person should not have left. This diagnosis should not be real. That opportunity should not have passed. My body should not be aging. My life should have turned out differently. And all of this resistance creates suffering on top of suffering. The Buddha is not asking you to be passive. He is not asking you to stop working for positive change. He is asking you to stop fighting against what has already happened, to stop demanding that the past be different than it was, to stop insisting that the present moment be other than it is. What are you resisting right now in your own life? What reality are you fighting against? What truth are you refusing to accept? Maybe it is something small, a person's behavior that irritates you, a situation at work that you wish were different. Or maybe it is something large, a loss you cannot reconcile, a change you did not want, a truth about your life that breaks your heart. Wherever you are resisting, notice what that resistance feels like in your body. There is usually tension, tightness, a sense of bracing against what is. And notice how much energy this resistance requires. You are pushing against reality itself, and reality always wins. Now, just as an experiment, try releasing that resistance. This does not mean you approve of what happened. It does not mean you like it. It simply means you stop fighting against what already is. You let reality be real. You feel what you feel without demanding that your feelings change anything. Notice what happens when you release resistance even slightly. Often, there is a softening. The pain may still be there, but it becomes more bearable when you stop fighting it. The situation may still be difficult, but it becomes possible to navigate when you stop demanding it be different first. Your body knows how to do this. Your breath flows in and out without resistance. Your heart beats without insisting it should beat differently. Your body accepts reality moment by moment. It is only your mind that fights, that demands, that resists. So let your body teach, your mind now. Feel your breath moving without effort. Feel your heart beating without complaint. Feel the weight of your body surrendering to gravity, not fighting, not resisting, just allowing. This is acceptance. This is peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer at war with what is. Your whole body can rest in this understanding now. There is nothing you need to change about this moment. Nothing you need to fix or figure out. Just this breath. Just this gentle allowing. Your shoulders can drop completely. Your jaw can be soft. Your hands can rest open. Not grasping, not holding, just being. Let us continue with another profound teaching. The Buddha once had a disciple named Bahia, who was known for his impatience. Bahia had been practicing for some time, and he believed he was very close to enlightenment. He heard that the Buddha was passing through a nearby town, and he became consumed with urgency. He must reach the Buddha immediately. He must get the teaching right now. His enlightenment could not wait. Bahia ran to find the Buddha, pushing through crowds, breathless with urgency. When he finally found him, the Buddha was walking through the marketplace on his arms round, peacefully collecting offerings of food from the townspeople. Bahia rushed up to him, panting, and demanded, "Teacher, please, give me the teaching. I must have enlightenment now. I cannot wait any longer." The Buddha continued walking calmly, not breaking his stride. "Bahia, this is not the time. I am on alms round. Come back later when I have finished, and I will teach you." But Bahia could not accept this. His urgency felt like life or death. "Please," he cried. "You do not understand. I must have the teaching now. Life is uncertain. I could die at any moment. Please, just give me the teaching." The Buddha stopped walking and turned to face Bahia. He looked at him for a long moment, and in that gaze, Bahia felt seen completely. The Buddha recognized the genuine desperation in this man, the sincere longing beneath the impatience, and he gave him what would become one of the most direct, most profound teachings in all of Buddhism. "Bahia," the Buddha said quietly, "in the seeing, there is just the seeing. In the hearing, there is just the hearing. In the sensing, there is just the sensing. In the cognizing, there is just the cognizing. When, for you, in the seen, there is just the seen. In the heard, there is just the heard. In the sensed, there is just the sensed. In the cognized, there is just the cognized. Then you will not be by that. When you are not by that, you will not be in that. When you are not in that, you will be neither here nor beyond, nor between the two. This, just this, is the end of suffering." With these simple words, Bahia suddenly understood. In that moment, his seeking stopped. His urgency dissolved. He saw that enlightenment was not something to achieve in the future, not something to run toward or grasp. It was simply the direct recognition of what was already here. Seeing without adding story to seeing, hearing without adding commentary to hearing. Being fully present with exactly what is, without the layer of mental construction we usually place over reality. Bahia attained full enlightenment, standing right there in the marketplace. But the story does not end there. Shortly after this teaching, Bahia was killed by a charging cow in the street. His urgency had been correct, life was uncertain, and his time was indeed short. But the irony is profound. He had been running toward enlightenment, convinced he needed it right now, desperately urgent. And when he finally stopped running, when he became fully present with this moment exactly as it is, he found what he had been seeking. And then, moments later, he died. The Buddha later told his disciples that Bahia had died fully enlightened, completely at peace. His urgency to reach enlightenment had been both his obstacle and his gateway. The obstacle because real presence cannot coexist with urgency. Urgency is always about some future moment, some goal to achieve. But it became his gateway because his urgency brought him to the Buddha at exactly the right moment, with enough desperation to actually hear what was being said. This teaching is life-changing because it reveals the fundamental paradox of all spiritual seeking. What you are looking for is already here. You are looking for peace, for presence, for freedom from suffering. And these are not found by achieving something in the future. They are found by fully inhabiting this moment exactly as it is. Right now, there is seeing. Perhaps you see darkness behind your closed eyelids, perhaps patterns of light. There is just this seeing, no one seeing. No story about what you are seeing, just the pure experience of seeing itself. Right now, there is hearing. Perhaps you hear these words, perhaps sounds in your environment. There is just this hearing. No one hearing, no judgment about what you hear, just the pure experience of sound arriving. Right now, there is sensing. You feel the weight of your body, the texture of whatever you are lying on, the temperature of the air. There is just this sensing. No one experiencing these sensations. No story about whether they are pleasant or unpleasant. Just the direct experience of sensation itself. This is what the Buddha was pointing to. In each moment, there is pure experience before you add the layer of me experiencing it. Before you create a story about it, before you judge it or wish it were different, there is just this, just seeing, just hearing, just sensing, just being. And when you rest in this direct experience, without the constant overlay of thinking about the experience, something extraordinary happens. The one who suffers drops away, because suffering requires a me who believes things should be different. It requires a self who is separate from experience, who can have good or bad experiences, who can gain or lose, succeed or fail. But in the pure moment of direct experience, there is no self separate from what is happening. There is just this seamless flow of being. You do not have to go anywhere to find this. You do not have to achieve anything. You do not have to become someone different. You simply stop adding story to reality. You let seeing be just seeing. You let hearing be just hearing. You let this moment be exactly what it is without wrapping it in narrative, in judgment, in commentary. Practice this now in the gentlest way. Not trying to achieve some special state, not trying to get enlightened. Simply noticing the difference between pure experience and the story you tell about the experience. There is breath moving. That is all. Not my breath. Not good or bad breathing. Just the simple reality of breath moving. There is sensation in the body. That is all. Not my body. Not comfortable or uncomfortable. Just pure sensation arising and passing. And notice how peaceful this is. How simple. When you stop trying to be someone having this experience, when you stop narrating and judging and wishing things were different, there is just this quiet flow of being. No problem, no lack, no need for anything to change. Bahia's urgency was the belief that peace existed somewhere other than here, sometime other than now. But the Buddha showed him that peace is not a destination to reach. It is what remains when you stop running, when you stop seeking, when you simply let this moment be exactly what it is. You do not need to wait for the perfect circumstances to experience this peace. You do not need to solve all your problems first, heal all your wounds first, become a better person first. Right now, exactly as you are, exactly as this moment is, there is just this, and this is enough. This has always been enough. You have just been too busy seeking to notice that what you were seeking was already here. Feel the ease of this, the relief of it. You do not have to become enlightened. You do not have to achieve anything. You can just be here, breathing, sensing, allowing. The urgency can dissolve, the seeking can rest. There is nowhere to go, nothing to become, just this eternal present moment, always here, always now, always enough. Your body understands this completely. It has never been anywhere but here and now. It has never been trying to become something other than what it is. It simply breathes, beats, digests, rests, without urgency, without seeking. Let your awareness be like your body now, simply here, simply being, not trying to get anywhere or become anything. The tightness in your chest can release. The tension in your belly can soften. Your legs can become heavy and still. Every part of you can settle into this recognition. You are already home. You have always been home. There is nowhere else to go. This moment, exactly as it is the only moment there ever is. And it is enough. It has always been enough. You are enough. Rest here. Rest in the pure simplicity of being. No story, no seeker, no goal, just this, just now, just breath, just peace, just being itself, recognizing itself, resting in itself. This is what Bahia found in that marketplace moment, and it is here for you now, not tomorrow, not after you achieve something. Now, this very breath, this very moment, already complete, already whole, already at peace. Let us move deeper into the Buddha's wisdom with another teaching that can transform how you relate to the questions that trouble your mind. One day, a man named Malunkyaputta came to the Buddha with a list of profound philosophical questions. He wanted to know, is the universe eternal or not eternal? Is the universe infinite or finite? Is the soul the same as the body or different from the body? Does an enlightened being exist after death or not exist after death? Malunkyaputta told the Buddha, I will not continue practicing unless you answer these questions for me. I need to understand these things before I can commit to this path. If you cannot answer them, I will leave and find another teacher who can. The Buddha looked at this earnest seeker and said, Malunkyaputta, did I ever promise you that if you practiced with me, I would answer these questions? No, Malunkyaputta admitted. And did you ever tell me when you began practicing that you needed these questions answered? No, I did not. The Buddha nodded. Then why are you making these demands now? But more importantly, let me tell you a story that will show you why these questions are not what you think they are. The Buddha said, imagine a man is struck by a poisoned arrow. His friends rush to bring him to a doctor, but the wounded man says, wait, before you remove this arrow, I must know who shot it. What is his name? What is his caste? Is he tall or short? From what village does he come? What type of wood is this arrow made from? What kind of feathers are on it? What type of poison was used? The Buddha looked at Malunkyaputta intently. What would happen to this man while he demanded answers to all these questions? Malunkyaputta understood immediately. He would die, teacher. He would die before getting answers to even half his questions. Exactly. The Buddha said, you are like this man. You have been struck by the arrow of suffering. Birth is suffering. Aging is suffering. Sickness is suffering. Death is suffering. Separation from what you love is suffering. Not getting what you want is suffering. This arrow is in you right now, and I am offering to remove it. I am offering to show you the path to the end of suffering. But you are saying, wait, before you help me, first answer these metaphysical questions about the nature of the universe, the existence of the soul, what happens after death. The Buddha continued, these questions are not relevant to your suffering. Whether the universe is eternal or not eternal, you still suffer. Whether the soul is the same as the body or different, you still experience pain, loss, confusion, fear. These questions do not help you. They are speculation, and speculation does not remove the arrow. What matters is understanding the cause of suffering and the path to its cessation. Everything else is a distraction from what actually matters. Malunkyaputta felt the truth of this land in his heart. He had been using these questions as a way to avoid the actual work of transformation. As long as he could say, "I need these answers first," he could postpone the more difficult task of looking at his own mind, his own attachments, his own patterns of suffering. The philosophical questions felt important, but they were actually a way of avoiding what was real and immediate. The Buddha said, "I teach suffering and the end of suffering. That is all. I do not teach theories about the universe, speculations about the soul, or metaphysical positions that cannot be verified through direct experience." Why? Because these things do not lead to the end of suffering. They lead only to endless debate, to positions held and defended, to more thinking and less direct seeing. He leaned forward. "You want to understand everything before you take action. But this is backwards. Understanding comes through practice, through direct experience, not through getting all your questions answered first. If you wait until you understand everything, until every doubt is resolved, until every question is answered, you will wait forever. The arrow will remain, and you will die still waiting for perfect understanding before you acted." This teaching transformed Malunkyaputa's life. He stopped demanding that the universe make sense to his mind before he engaged with the practice. He stopped using his questions as a shield against the actual work of transformation. He began to practice, and through practice, many of his questions simply dissolved. They revealed themselves as the wrong questions, questions based on false assumptions about the nature of self and reality. This teaching is life-changing because most of us are like Malunkyaputta. We have been struck by the arrow of suffering, but we postpone dealing with it because we think we need to understand everything first. Why did this happen to me? What does it mean? What is the purpose of suffering? Is there a God? What happens after death? Is the universe fair or unfair? Do I have free will? These questions can occupy your whole life. You can spend decades thinking about them, debating them, seeking answers, and none of it removes the arrow. None of it ends your actual suffering in this moment. Because suffering is not philosophical, it is immediate. It is the tightness in your chest when you feel anxious. It is the ache in your heart when you feel alone. It is the tension in your body when you are afraid. And it does not care about your theories. The Buddha is not saying questions are bad. He is saying that some questions are relevant to your well-being and some are not. Some questions lead to freedom, and some lead to more entanglement. The relevant questions are, what causes my suffering? How am I creating or maintaining my pain? What can I let go of? How can I be more present, more accepting, more at peace? The irrelevant questions are the ones you use to avoid looking at what is actually happening. Why is life unfair? Why did this happen to me? What is the ultimate meaning of everything? These questions keep you in your head, spinning in thought, avoiding the direct experience of this moment and what it requires from you. What questions are you using to avoid taking action in your own life? What do you tell yourself you need to understand before you can move forward? Maybe you think you need to understand why your childhood was difficult before you can heal. Or you need to know whether you are on the right path before you commit to anything. Or you need to figure out the meaning of life before you can be at peace. Or you need to understand someone's behavior before you can forgive them. But the Buddha is showing you something different. You can remove the arrow first. You can address your suffering now, in this moment, without waiting for perfect understanding. You can practice peace, practice presence, practice letting go, even while questions remain unanswered. And often, through the practice itself, the questions dissolve or reveal themselves as unnecessary. Feel into this teaching right now. What questions are you carrying that keep you from being fully here? What do you think you need to figure out before you can relax? Notice how these questions create tension, how they keep your mind active and seeking, how they prevent you from simply resting in not knowing. The mind does not like not knowing. It wants certainty, understanding, answers. But peace does not come from having all the answers. Peace comes from being able to rest in the midst of uncertainty, to be okay with not understanding everything, to live fully even while questions remain. Your body has never needed these answers. It breathes without knowing why consciousness exists. Your heart beats without understanding the meaning of life. Your cells repair themselves without needing to know if the universe is eternal. Your body simply does what needs to be done, moment by moment, without requiring perfect understanding first. Let your awareness be like your body now, not needing to understand, not needing to have everything figured out. Simply here, simply breathing, simply being. The questions can rest, the seeking can quiet. You do not need to know everything. You only need to be here, now, allowing this moment to be exactly what it is. Feel your whole body softening with this release. The burden of needing to understand everything can lift. Your forehead can smooth, your eyes can rest more deeply, your jaw can become completely slack, your throat can open, your shoulders can drop away from your ears, your chest can expand without effort. There is nothing you need to figure out right now, no question that must be answered before you can rest. The arrow of suffering is removed not by understanding why you suffer, but by practicing presence, acceptance, and letting go. And you can practice these right now, this very breath, this very moment, already complete, already enough, already home. We will continue with another essential teaching from the Buddha's life. But are you still here? If you are still here, I hope these teachings can bring your family peace. Now, back to the story. Among the Buddha's disciples was a monk named Sona who had been practicing with extraordinary intensity. Sona came from a wealthy background and had lived a life of comfort and ease. When he renounced that life to seek enlightenment, he swung to the opposite extreme. He would barely sleep, barely eat, and he spent hours each day walking in meditation until his feet bled and left bloody footprints on the stone path. Sona believed that enlightenment required this kind of severe austerity, this complete denial of the body's needs. He thought that the more he pushed himself, the more he suffered physically, the closer he would come to awakening. He was determined to force enlightenment through sheer willpower and extreme effort. But despite all his striving, despite all his pain and sacrifice, Sona was not finding peace. In fact, he was becoming more agitated, more exhausted, more discouraged. His body was breaking down. His mind was becoming scattered rather than concentrated. And a question began to grow in his heart. Is this the right path? Should I continue, or should I give up and return to ordinary life? The Buddha, perceiving Sona's struggle, came to speak with him one evening as Sona sat exhausted and bloody-footed after another day of intensive practice. Sona, the Buddha asked gently, before you became a monk, you were skilled at playing the lute, were you not? Sona was surprised by this question, but he answered, yes, teacher. I was trained in music as a young man. The Buddha nodded. Tell me, when the strings of the lute are too tight, what happens? The strings break, Sona replied, or they produce a harsh, unpleasant sound. And when the strings are too loose, then there is no sound at all. The music cannot be played. The Buddha smiled. And when are the strings just right? Sona understood. When they are neither too tight nor too loose. When they have just the right tension, then the lute produces beautiful music. Yes, the Buddha said. And so it is with spiritual practice. When you push too hard, when you strain and force and deny your body's natural needs, you create harshness and eventually you break. When you are too lax, too comfortable, too undisciplined, no progress is made. The path to awakening is the middle way, neither extreme austerity nor indulgent comfort, but a balanced approach that honors both your sincere effort and your human needs. The Buddha continued, you are trying to torture yourself into enlightenment. But awakening does not come through violence against yourself. It comes through patient, steady, balanced practice. You can be dedicated without being harsh. You can be disciplined without being cruel to yourself. The body is not the enemy. It is the instrument through which you practice. If you break the instrument, how will you play the music? Sona felt tears spring to his eyes. He had been so caught in the belief that spiritual progress required suffering that he had to prove his dedication through pain. But the Buddha was showing him something different. The middle way was not about compromise or half-hearted effort. It was about sustainable practice, about finding the right tension that allows for both genuine effort and natural ease. From that day forward, Sona changed his approach. He still practiced diligently, but he also slept when he needed sleep. He ate enough to sustain his body. He walked in meditation, but when his feet hurt, he rested. He learned to bring a quality of gentleness to his practice, to work with his human nature rather than fighting against it. And something remarkable happened. Without the constant strain and exhaustion, his mind became clearer. His concentration deepened. His practice became more stable and joyful rather than desperate and grim. Within a short time, Sona attained full enlightenment, not through extreme effort, but through the balanced, patient practice of the middle way. This teaching is life-changing because most of us live in extremes. We swing between pushing too hard and giving up completely. We try to force ourselves into being different, better, more disciplined. We set impossible standards and then beat ourselves up for not meeting them. We treat ourselves harshly, believing that peace comes through conquering ourselves, defeating our weaknesses, eliminating our flaws. Or we swing to the other extreme. We give up on any effort, any discipline, any practice. We tell ourselves that acceptance means not trying to change anything, that we should just be comfortable all the time, that any discomfort means we are doing something wrong. But the Buddha is teaching something more subtle than either extreme. The middle way is not about mediocrity or compromise. It is about finding the right tension, enough effort to make progress, but not so much that you create suffering. Enough discipline to create positive change, but not so rigid that you break. Enough gentleness to honor your humanity, but not so lax that nothing moves. Think about your own life. Where are you pulling the strings too tight? Where are you straining, forcing, demanding too much of yourself? Maybe you are trying to be perfect. Maybe you are pushing your body beyond its natural limits. Maybe you are being harsh with yourself for every mistake, every flaw, every human limitation. The strings are too tight, and you can feel the harshness, the brittleness, the sense that you might break. Or perhaps in some areas, the strings are too loose. Maybe you have given up on taking care of yourself. Maybe you have abandoned any practice, any discipline, any effort toward growth. Maybe you have decided that it is too hard, that change is impossible, that you might as well just stay comfortable, even if that comfort is actually a kind of stagnation. The strings are too loose, and no music can be played. The Buddha invites you to find the middle way. This is not a static point you find once and maintain forever. It is a constant adjustment, a sensitivity to what this moment requires. Sometimes you need more discipline, more effort, more engagement. Sometimes you need more rest, more gentleness, more allowing. The middle way is responsive, alive, always finding the right tension for this particular moment. And right now, in this moment, as you rest here preparing for sleep, the middle way might mean this. You are making the effort to be present, to listen to these teachings, to bring awareness to your experience. But you are also allowing your body to rest completely, not forcing anything, not straining towards some ideal state. You are both engaged and easeful, both awake and relaxed, both intentional and allowing. This is the sweet spot. This is where transformation happens, not through violence against yourself, but through patient, balanced, gentle persistence. Not through giving up, but through showing up in a way that is sustainable, that honors your humanity while also moving you toward greater peace and freedom. Feel this balance in your body right now. There is enough awareness to notice these words, to feel your breath, to sense your body. But there is no strain. Your attention can be both present and soft. Your body can be both supported and releasing. You are not collapsed in sleep, but you are also not holding yourself rigidly awake. You are in the middle way, alert enough to receive, relaxed enough to rest. Your breath finds this balance naturally. It requires no effort, yet it sustains your life. It happens on its own, yet you can bring gentle attention to it, not forcing deeper breaths, not trying to breathe perfectly, just allowing breath to be what it already is: natural, easy, sufficient. Let this quality of the middle way permeate your whole being now. Your face can be soft, but not collapsed. Your body can be still, but not rigid. Your mind can be aware, but not busy. Everything finding its natural balance point, like the strings of a lute tuned perfectly, ready to play beautiful music without strain, without force, without breaking. The teaching Sona learned is available to you now. You do not need to torture yourself into peace. You do not need to prove your worth through suffering. You can be gentle with yourself, patient with your process, kind to your human limitations, while still moving steadily toward greater freedom and deeper rest. Feel your legs becoming heavier, sinking more fully into rest. Your arms can lie wherever they naturally fall, no effort to position them perfectly. Your spine can release its holding, trusting the support beneath you. Your whole body can rest in this middle way, neither forcing nor giving up, simply allowing, simply being, simply breathing. The middle way is not a destination to reach. It is a practice, a sensitivity, a way of being that you return to again and again. When you notice you are pushing too hard, you soften. When you notice you have become too lax, you gently re-engage. Not through judgment, not through harsh correction, but through simple, kind adjustment. And in this practice of the middle way, you discover something wonderful. Peace is not something you create through extreme effort. It is what naturally arises when you stop straining, when you stop fighting, when you find that sweet spot of balanced presence. Like the perfectly tuned lute, your whole being can resonate with a natural harmony that requires no force, only the right tension, the right balance, the right way. Rest here now, in this middle way. Nothing to prove, nothing to force, nothing to achieve, just this gentle presence, this balanced awareness, this easeful being. The strings are tuned just right, and the music of your own peace can play itself, softly, naturally, beautifully, as you sink deeper into rest. Let us move deeper into the Buddha's transformative wisdom with a teaching about the nature of desire. One day, a wealthy merchant came to the Buddha seeking advice. The merchant had achieved everything he had ever wanted: vast wealth, a beautiful home, a loving family, respect in his community. Yet he was not happy. In fact, he was more anxious than ever. "I have everything," the merchant told the Buddha, "but I am terrified of losing it. Every day I worry. What if my business fails? What if my wealth disappears? What if my family leaves me? What if I become sick and cannot enjoy what I have built? I thought that achieving my goals would bring me peace, but instead, it has brought me more fear than I ever had when I was poor." The Buddha nodded with understanding. "You have discovered something important," he said. "You have learned that getting what you want does not end desire. It transforms desire into fear of loss. Before you had wealth, you desired it. Now you have it, and you desire to keep it. The wanting has not stopped. It has only changed its form." The merchant leaned forward, desperate for a solution. "Then what should I do? Should I give up everything I have worked for? Should I renounce my wealth and become a monk?" The Buddha shook his head. Renouncing external things does not necessarily change internal attachment. I have known monks who owned nothing, but were still consumed by craving for enlightenment, craving for recognition as spiritual, craving to be free from craving. And I have known wealthy people who were genuinely free because they did not cling to what they had. The issue is not what you have. The issue is your relationship to what you have," he continued. "Imagine you are holding a beautiful bird in your hands. If you hold it too tightly, afraid of losing it, you will crush it. The very thing you are trying to preserve, you will destroy through your tight holding. But if you hold it too loosely, afraid of attachment, it may fly away before its time. The middle way is to hold it gently, appreciating its presence while knowing that one day it will fly away. And when that day comes, you let it go with grace rather than suffering. The Buddha looked at the merchant kindly. This is how to hold everything in your life. Your wealth, your family, your health, your reputation. Hold them gently. Enjoy them fully while they are here. Take care of them. But know that they are not permanent. They are not truly yours to keep. They are visitors in your life, and one day they will leave. When you hold them with this understanding, you can have them without the constant fear of losing them. The merchant was beginning to understand, but he asked, "How can I enjoy something when I know I will lose it? Does that not make everything bittersweet? Does that not take the joy out of living?" The Buddha smiled. Actually, it is the opposite. When you know that something is temporary, it becomes more precious, not less. When you truly understand that this moment with your family will not last forever, you are present for it in a way you never were when you took it for granted. When you know that your health is fragile and will not last, you appreciate the simple ability to walk, to breathe, to see the sunrise. Impermanence does not diminish joy, it deepens it. Because you are fully here, fully appreciating what is, rather than being lost in fear of the future or in trying to make the present moment last forever. The Buddha continued, "The problem is not that things change and pass away. The problem is that you want them to be permanent. You want to find something, some achievement, some relationship, some state of being that will last forever and make you permanently happy. But nothing works this way. Everything that arises passes away. Everything that comes together comes apart. This is not a tragedy. This is just the nature of reality. And when you stop fighting this nature, when you stop demanding that things be permanent, you discover a peace that is not dependent on circumstances staying the same." He leaned closer to the merchant. "Right now, you are suffering not because you have wealth, but because you are trying to make your wealth permanent. You are trying to make your family relationships permanent. You are trying to make your health and good fortune permanent, and this is impossible. So you live in constant anxiety, always defending, always protecting, always afraid. You have built a prison out of the very things you thought would make you free." The merchant felt this truth land in his heart. He saw clearly how much energy he spent trying to control, trying to maintain, trying to prevent change, and he saw how this constant effort created a tension that poisoned his ability to enjoy what he actually had. "But how do I stop?" he asked. "How do I let go of this need for things to be permanent?" The Buddha said, "You practice. Every day you remind yourself, this is temporary. This beautiful meal, this moment with my children, this sunrise, this breath temporary. And instead of letting this make you sad, you let it make you present. You let it wake you up. You stop taking things for granted. You stop living in the future, planning and protecting. You come here, to this moment, and you receive it fully, knowing it will not last." He continued, "And when losses do come, because they will come, you practice letting go gracefully. You feel your grief without adding the story that this loss should not have happened, that things should have been permanent, that you have been somehow cheated. You simply acknowledge, this thing I loved has passed, as all things pass. And you let yourself feel the natural sadness of this while not creating additional suffering through resistance." The merchant stayed with this teaching and began to practice. At first it was difficult. His mind kept reaching toward the future, trying to secure, trying to guarantee. But gradually, he learned to return to the present moment. He learned to enjoy his wealth without being owned by it. He learned to love his family without trying to freeze them in time. He learned to appreciate his good health without demanding that it last forever. And something remarkable happened. As he stopped trying to make things permanent, he became less afraid. The anxiety that had plagued him began to dissolve. He found that he could actually enjoy his life more fully when he stopped trying to grip it so tightly. The bird in his hand was beautiful, and he could appreciate its beauty without crushing it or living in constant fear of its flight. This teaching is life-changing because most of us relate to our lives exactly like the merchant did. We believe that if we can just get the right things, the right circumstances, the right relationships, and then keep them forever, we will finally be at peace. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of how life works. Nothing lasts forever. Everything changes. And our attempt to make things permanent is the source of enormous suffering. What are you gripping too tightly in your own life? What are you trying to make permanent? Maybe it is your youth, your health, your relationships, your success, your reputation. Maybe it is a particular identity, a particular role you play, a particular vision of how your life should be. Whatever it is, notice how tightly you are holding it. Notice the fear that comes with this tight holding. Notice how much energy you spend trying to prevent change, trying to control what cannot be controlled. The Buddha is inviting you to hold everything more gently, not to stop caring, not to become detached or indifferent, but to appreciate fully while knowing that nothing lasts, to love deeply while understanding that loss is inevitable, to enjoy fully while accepting that all things pass. This moment right now is temporary. This breath you are taking will end and another will begin. The sensations in your body are changing even as you notice them. The thoughts moving through your mind arise and dissolve like clouds. Everything is flowing, changing, passing away. And this is not something to fear. This is simply how life is. When you stop demanding that things be permanent, you discover something wonderful. You find a peace that is not dependent on circumstances staying the same. You find a joy that is not diminished by the knowledge that things will change. You find a love that is not poisoned by the fear of loss, because you are not holding tightly, you are holding gently. You are present with what is, grateful for what is here now, while not demanding that it last forever. Feel this quality of gentle holding in your own being now. You are here, in this moment, aware, present, but you are not gripping this moment, trying to make it last forever. You are simply allowing it to be what it is. And already, it is changing. Already, this breath is becoming the next breath. Already, this moment is becoming the next moment. And this is okay. This is how it should be. Everything flowing, everything changing, everything temporary. Your body knows this deeply. Every cell in your body is constantly changing, dying, and being reborn. Your body has no expectation of permanence. It simply does what it does in this moment, and then the next moment, and then the next. It does not try to hold on to yesterday's breath or yesterday's heartbeat. It is always here, now, doing what needs to be done, and then letting go. Let your awareness be like your body, simply here, simply present, simply allowing, not trying to freeze this moment in time, not trying to prevent the next moment from coming. Just this gentle flow of being, this natural arising and passing of experience, this ease that comes from not fighting the fundamental nature of reality. Your whole body can soften even more with this understanding. There is nothing you need to hold on to, nothing you need to grip. Your hands can rest completely open, palms up, receiving what comes, releasing what goes. Your chest can expand and soften, not defending, not bracing against change. Your belly can be completely at ease, trusting the natural flow of things. The fear you have been carrying about loss, about change, about things not lasting, it can begin to dissolve. Not because you have found a way to make things permanent, but because you have stopped demanding that they be permanent. You can appreciate this breath without needing it to last forever. You can rest in this moment without needing to know what comes next. You can be here, fully, completely, while understanding that here is always changing, always flowing, always new. This is the peace the merchant found. Not the peace of having everything and keeping it forever, but the peace of holding everything gently, appreciating everything fully, and letting everything go when its time comes. This is the peace that is available to you right now. Not in some future when you have everything figured out and secured, but here, in this temporary, changing, flowing moment, already complete, already enough, already free. There was a young woman named Soma who struggled with a burden many of us carry, the weight of other people's judgments. She lived in a small village where everyone knew everyone, and she had been born into a family that the villagers looked down upon. Her father had made mistakes in business, her brother had a reputation for laziness, and the family name carried shame. Soma herself was intelligent, kind, and hard-working, but wherever she went, she felt the eyes of judgment upon her. When she walked through the market, she imagined people whispering about her family. When she tried to contribute to village discussions, she felt that her words carried less weight because of her family's reputation. She began to shrink herself, to speak less, to avoid drawing attention, believing that she would always be defined by circumstances beyond her control. One day, exhausted by this invisible prison, Soma heard that the Buddha was teaching nearby. She went to listen, sitting at the very back of the crowd, trying to be invisible as usual. But the Buddha's eyes found her, and he spoke as if directly to her heart. "Many of you live as if you are wearing heavy chains," the Buddha said. "But these chains are not made of iron. They are made of opinions, other people's opinions about who you are, what you are worth, what you are capable of. And you carry these opinions as if they are truth. You let others define you. You let their judgments become your prison." Soma felt tears spring to her eyes. This was exactly her suffering. The Buddha continued, "But here is what you must understand. No one else can define who you are. They can have opinions. They can make judgments. They can create stories about you based on limited information, on prejudice, on their own fears and projections. But none of this touches your true nature. None of this changes who you actually are." He looked around at the crowd. "You are not your family's mistakes. You are not your past errors. You are not the role others have cast you in. You are not the story others tell about you. These are all just thoughts, just opinions, just constructs of the mind, and you can choose whether to carry them or not." A man in the crowd called out, "But teacher, what about reputation? What about honor? Don't these things matter?" The Buddha smiled. "Does the moon lose its brightness when a dog barks at it? Does the mountain crumble when someone calls it ugly? External things remain what they are, regardless of opinions about them. And so it is with you. Your essential nature, your Buddha nature, your basic goodness, these cannot be touched by anyone's opinion. They exist independent of what others think." He looked back at Soma, though he could not have known her name or her story. The suffering comes when you believe the opinions, when you accept the judgments as truth, when you let others' limited perceptions define your sense of who you are. This is giving away your power. This is becoming a slave to others' minds. Soma felt something crack open inside her. She had spent years believing that she was what others thought of her. She had accepted their judgments as if they were facts about her nature. She had never questioned whether these opinions were true or even relevant. She had simply carried them, day after day, until they had become so heavy she could barely move. "So what should I do?" someone asked the Buddha. "How do I stop caring what others think?" The Buddha said, "You do not need to stop caring completely. Living in community means some attention to how our actions affect others, but you can stop giving others the power to define your worth. You can recognize that their opinions are just that, opinions. Thoughts arising in their minds based on their conditioning, their biases, their limited view. Why would you let someone else's thoughts determine your experience of yourself?" He continued, "Practice this. When you notice you are suffering because of someone's opinion of you, pause. Ask yourself, is this opinion based on direct knowledge of who I am? Or is it based on assumption, prejudice, limited information? And even if their opinion has some truth to it, Even if you have made mistakes or have limitations, does this define your total being? Or is it just one aspect of a much larger, more complex reality? And most importantly, the Buddha said, his voice soft but penetrating, ask yourself, am I living according to my own deepest values? Am I being honest, kind, truthful as best I can? Am I growing, learning, doing my best? If the answer is yes, then you can rest in that. Others will have their opinions. Let them. You do not need to carry those opinions. You do not need to defend against them. You can simply continue being true to yourself. Soma approached the Buddha after the teaching. She told him about her family's reputation, about the judgment she felt constantly, about how she had become small and silent, trying to avoid criticism. The Buddha looked at her with infinite compassion. You have been living as if you are on trial every moment, as if you must constantly prove your worth to others. But who gave them the authority to judge you? And more importantly, why did you accept this authority? Soma realized she had no good answer. She had simply assumed that others had the right to judge her, that their judgments mattered more than her own sense of herself. From this moment, the Buddha said, practice standing in your own authority, not with arrogance, not with defensiveness, but with simple dignity. You know who you are. You know your intentions. You know your efforts. This is enough. Let others think what they will. Their thoughts are their business, not yours. In the months that followed, Soma's life transformed completely. She still heard the whispers, still felt the judgments, but she no longer carried them. When she noticed herself shrinking because of others' opinions, she would pause, breathe, and remember, these are just thoughts in someone else's mind. They do not define me. And she would return to herself, to her own integrity, to her own sense of what was true and right. Gradually, something remarkable happened. As she stopped being defined by others' judgments, as she stopped defending and hiding and apologizing for who she was, people began to see her differently. Not everyone, of course. Some continued to hold their old opinions, but many began to see her as she actually was capable, kind, strong in her own quiet way. The change in how they saw her came not because she convinced them, but because she stopped needing them to see her differently. She stopped giving them the power to define her. This teaching can transform your life right now. How much energy are you spending trying to manage others' opinions of you? How often do you make choices based on what others will think, rather than what feels true to you? How many times a day do you shrink yourself, edit yourself, hide parts of yourself because you fear judgment? The Buddha is showing you that you can put this burden down, not by becoming careless about how you affect others, but by recognizing that their opinions do not have the power you have given them. You can be courteous, respectful, kind, and you can also stop letting others' thoughts about you determine your worth. Think about a judgment you are carrying right now. Maybe someone thinks you are not smart enough, not successful enough, not attractive enough, not spiritual enough. You have taken this judgment into yourself and made it part of your identity. But pause now and ask, is this judgment actually true? And even if it has some truth, does it define your entire being? Or is it just one person's limited perspective? Feel what happens when you set this judgment down. Not defending against it, not trying to prove it wrong, just setting it down, recognizing, this is someone else's thought. I do not need to carry it. It does not define me. I know who I am. Your body can release the tension that comes from constantly being on trial, constantly being evaluated. Your shoulders can drop from around your ears. Your jaw can unclench. Your belly can soften. You do not need to defend yourself right now. You do not need to prove anything. You can simply be here, breathing, resting in the simple truth of your own being. You are not what others think of you. You are not your reputation. You are not the stories told about you. You are simply this awareness, breath, being. And this needs no one's approval. This needs no one's validation. This simply is complete in itself, whole in itself, free. Among the Buddha's students was a man named Channa, who had been the Buddha's charioteer in his former life as a prince. Because of this history, Channa believed he deserved special treatment. He carried an arrogance that created constant friction with the other monks. He would interrupt teachings to share his own opinions. He refused to follow the community guidelines that everyone else followed. When other monks tried to offer him gentle feedback, he would remind them of his special relationship with the Buddha. The other monks came to the Buddha in frustration. "Teacher, Channa is disrupting our community. He will not listen to anyone. He believes his past connection to you places him above the rules. What should we do?" The Buddha was silent for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised them all. "When I am gone, give Channa the highest teaching." The monks were confused. The highest teaching? But he is the most difficult student. Should we not give him correction instead? "You will give him the correction he needs," the Buddha said. "But it will not come through words or rules. It will come through being left alone with himself." Years later, after the Buddha had passed away, the monks remembered these instructions. They approached Channa and told him, "The Buddha left specific instructions for you. We are to give you the Brahma Danda, the noble silence. From this day forward, no one in the community will speak to you, teach you, or acknowledge you. You will eat alone, practice alone, exist alone among us until you understand what needs to be understood." At first, Channa was enraged. How dare they treat him this way? Did they not know who he was? Did they not remember his special connection to the Buddha? He tried to engage with the other monks, but they simply looked through him as if he were not there. He tried to assert his importance, but his words fell on ears that would not hear. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and, slowly, something began to happen inside Channa. Without anyone to reflect back his importance, without anyone to fight with or impress or dominate, he had to face something he had been avoiding his entire life: himself. For the first time, he saw his arrogance clearly. He saw how he had used his past connection to the Buddha as a way to avoid looking at his own behavior, his own shortcomings. He saw how he had demanded special treatment because deep down he was terrified that without it, he was ordinary. He saw how much energy he had spent trying to prove his worth, trying to be seen as special, trying to maintain a position above others. And beneath all of this, he found something painful and vulnerable. A deep insecurity, a fear that he was not enough as he was. All of his arrogance had been armor against this fear. All of his demands for special treatment had been attempts to convince himself that he mattered. Sitting alone, day after day, with no one to perform for, no one to impress, no one to fight against, Channa finally met himself, not the inflated image he had been projecting, but the actual person beneath the armor, and something broke open. He wept for days, seeing clearly how much suffering his arrogance had created, both for himself and for others. One morning, he approached the elder monk who had pronounced the Brahma Danda upon him. Channa bowed deeply and said, "I understand now. The highest teaching was not a punishment, it was the greatest gift. You gave me no choice but to see myself clearly. And in seeing myself clearly, I have finally begun to be free." The elder monk smiled with warmth. "The Brahma Danda is lifted. Welcome back to the community, brother. Not as someone special, but as one of us, just another practitioner walking the path." And Channa, for the first time in his life, felt the peace that comes from not needing to be special, from not needing to prove anything, from simply being one among many, ordinary and complete, exactly as he was. This story touches something essential about human suffering. So many of us are like Channa, carrying around a desperate need to be special, to be different, to stand out, to be recognized as somehow above or beyond ordinary humanity. We believe that being ordinary means being insignificant, worthless, invisible, and so we exhaust ourselves trying to prove that we are special. Maybe you do this through achievement: you must be the best, accomplish the most, rise above others. Maybe you do it through suffering. Your pain is worse than anyone else's, your struggles more significant. Maybe you do it through spiritual practice. You are more awakened, more conscious, more evolved than those around you. Or maybe you do it through being different, more unique, more misunderstood, more complex than ordinary people. But all of this is exhausting. All of this creates separation. And beneath it all is the same fear that Channa discovered, that if you are not special, you are nothing. That being ordinary means being worthless. That you must constantly prove your value or you will be revealed as inadequate. The Buddha's teaching through the Brahmadanda shows something revolutionary. Freedom comes not from proving you are special, but from discovering that you do not need to be special. You can be ordinary, one human being among billions, one leaf among countless leaves, one wave in an infinite ocean, and this is enough. This is complete. This is whole. Right now, you do not need to be anyone special. You do not need to have any unique qualities or exceptional achievements for this moment to be valid. You do not need to prove that your experience is more significant than anyone else's. You can just be here, breathing, resting, ordinary and complete. Feel the relief of this. The burden of needing to be special can lift. You do not need to impress anyone, not even yourself. You do not need to be different or better or more evolved. You can just be this, simple being, breathing in and out, aware and present, no different from countless others who have breathed and been aware, and no less valuable for that. Your breath is ordinary. Billions of beings breathe just as you do. Your heartbeat is ordinary, nothing special about it, just the same rhythm that has sustained life for millions of years. Your awareness is ordinary, this same consciousness that looks through your eyes, looks through all eyes. And yet, here it is. Here you are, ordinary and miraculous at the same time. The body you are resting in right now is ordinary. It gets tired. It feels discomfort. It ages. It has limitations. Nothing special about it. And yet, it is your home, your instrument, the way you experience life. It does not need to be a special body, a perfect body, a body that stands out from all others. It can just be this body, ordinary and enough. Let your whole being relax into ordinariness now. Your face does not need to be holding any particular expression. Your body does not need to be positioned in any special way. You do not need to be having any exceptional experience. You can just be here, simple, ordinary, real. And in this ordinariness, something beautiful happens. The constant striving stops. The endless comparison stops. The exhausting need to prove yourself stops. You can finally rest, not because you have achieved something special, but because you have discovered that you never needed to be special in the first place. Channa found freedom when he stopped trying to be above others and simply joined them as an equal. You can find this same freedom right now, not by achieving something, not by becoming something, but by releasing the demand to be anything other than what you simply are. One ordinary breath following another, one ordinary moment unfolding into the next, one ordinary human being, resting here in the dark, part of the great rhythm of all beings who have ever rested, who have ever breathed, who have ever been. Nothing special, everything enough, already complete, already home. Your eyelids can be heavy with the sweetness of ordinary rest. Your limbs can be heavy with the simple weight of being in a body. Your mind can be quiet with the peace of not needing to prove anything, be anything, become anything. Just this, just here, just now. Ordinary awareness, resting in ordinary being, and discovering that ordinary is another word for sacred, for complete, for whole. The world will continue its turning without needing you to be special. The stars will shine without your uniqueness. And you can rest here, one small being among countless beings. And this is enough. You have always been enough. Not because you are special, but because being is enough. Existing is enough. Breathing is enough. This very ordinariness is the miracle you have been seeking. A farmer once came to the Buddha in a state of great anxiety. He had just planted his rice fields, and every day he would go out to check on the seedlings. He would measure them, examine them, worry about them. Were they growing fast enough? Were they getting enough water? Too much water? What if the weather turned bad? What if pests came? One day, in his impatience and worry, the farmer decided to help his rice grow faster. He went into the field and began pulling gently on each seedling, stretching them upward to make them taller. He worked all day, and when he returned home that evening, he told his family proudly, "I have helped our rice grow today. I made every plant taller." But the next morning, when he went to check his fields, he found that all the seedlings had withered and died. By trying to force their growth, by pulling on them in his impatience, he had damaged their roots and destroyed the very crop he was trying to help. Devastated, the farmer came to the Buddha. "I have ruined everything through my impatience," he said. "I could not trust the natural process. I could not wait. And now I have destroyed what could have been." The Buddha looked at him with understanding. "You have learned something that many people never learn. Growth has its own timing. Development has its own pace. You cannot force a seed to become a plant any faster than its nature allows. You can provide the right conditions, good soil, water, sunlight, but then you must trust. You must wait. You must let the natural process unfold." The Buddha continued, "And so it is with everything in life. You cannot force a child to grow up faster than they naturally will. You cannot force healing to happen on your timeline. You cannot force understanding to come before its time. You cannot force your own transformation to happen faster than it naturally unfolds. All you can do is provide the right conditions and then practice patience, trust in the natural timing of things." The farmer bowed his head. "But patience is so difficult. How do I develop this quality?" "By recognizing that your impatience does not speed anything up," the Buddha said gently. "In fact, it often slows things down or damages them completely, just as pulling on the rice damaged its roots. Your anxiety about growth does not create growth. Your worry about healing does not create healing. Your frustration about your practice does not deepen your practice. These things only create suffering. They do not change the pace of natural development." He looked at the farmer kindly. "What would have happened if you had simply planted your rice, provided water when needed, and then trusted? The rice would have grown at its own pace. Some days you would see no visible change. Some days the growth would be obvious, but always, beneath the surface, the process would be unfolding. Roots deepening, strength gathering, life expressing itself in its own perfect timing." The Buddha paused, then said, "You must learn to work with the rhythm of life rather than against it. There is a time for planting and a time for harvesting, a time for effort and a time for rest, a time for action and a time for waiting. Wisdom is knowing which time it is and having the patience to honor that timing." The farmer took this teaching deeply to heart. The next season, he planted his fields again, and this time, when he felt the urge to check on them constantly, to measure and worry and interfere, he would pause and remember, growth is happening, even when I cannot see it. Trust the process. Provide what is needed and then let go. The rice grew beautifully that season, not because the farmer did more, but because he did less. He gave the rice what it needed, and then he trusted. He practiced patience. And the harvest was abundant. This teaching speaks to something we all struggle with: the difficulty of trusting natural timing, the challenge of being patient with processes that unfold more slowly than we would like. We live in a world that values speed, that promises instant results, that makes us believe we should be able to force anything to happen faster through sheer will and effort. And so we pull on our own seedlings. We try to force our healing before its time. We push ourselves to grow faster spiritually than we are ready for. We demand that our relationships deepen instantly, that our careers advance immediately, that our understanding arrive fully formed. We cannot tolerate the waiting, the not knowing, the slow unfolding that growth actually requires. But just like the farmer, we discover that forcing does not work. When you pull on a seedling, you damage its roots. When you force your own growth, you create stress and resistance. When you demand that things happen on your timeline rather than their natural timing, you often slow the very process you are trying to speed up. What are you trying to force right now in your own life? Where are you pulling on seedlings, impatient with natural timing? Maybe you are frustrated with how long healing is taking. Maybe you are impatient with your spiritual practice, wanting enlightenment now, wanting peace instantly. Maybe you cannot tolerate the slow development of a relationship, wanting deep intimacy before the foundation has been built. Wherever you are forcing, notice what this feels like. There is strain there, tension, a sense of fighting against something. This is the pulling on the seedlings. This is the damage to the roots. Now imagine what it would be like to plant the seeds and trust, to provide what is needed, the right conditions, the right effort, the right attention, and then to let go of controlling the timing. To know that growth is happening even when you cannot see it, even when nothing seems to be changing on the surface. Your own healing has its timing. Your own growth has its pace. Your own understanding will unfold when the conditions are right. And your impatience does not speed this up. It only creates suffering. It only adds tension to a process that unfolds most naturally when you relax, trust, and allow. Feel this truth in your body right now. Your body knows about natural timing. It knows that wounds heal at their own pace, that you cannot force healing faster by worrying about it. It knows that rest comes when you stop trying to force sleep. It knows that breath flows most easily when you trust it rather than controlling it. Your breath right now is showing you patience. Each inhale comes in its own time. Each exhale releases in its own time. No forcing, no rushing, just this natural rhythm, trusting itself completely, unfolding perfectly without your interference. Let your whole being learn from your breath. You can provide the right conditions for growth, good intention, regular practice, honest effort, and then you can trust. You can wait. You can let the natural timing reveal itself without trying to control it. The rice knows how to become rice. The seed knows how to become a plant. And somewhere deep inside you, your own being knows how to unfold, how to heal, how to grow. Not on your timeline, but on life's timeline. Not according to your impatience, but according to natural rhythm. Feel your body settling even deeper now, trusting the natural process of moving towards sleep. You cannot force sleep to come. You can only create the conditions lying down, releasing tension, allowing thoughts to slow, and then trust. Sleep will come in its own timing. Rest will deepen when you stop trying to make it happen. Your shoulders can release any remaining effort. Your jaw can soften completely. Your hands can rest with palms open, not grasping, not controlling. Your belly can be at ease, not pushing, not forcing. Everything in you can practice the patience of the rice farmer who learned to trust planting, tending, and then allowing growth to happen in its own perfect time. There is nowhere you need to rush to, nothing you need to force, no timeline you must meet right now. Just this gentle being here, breathing slowly, resting deeply, trusting that everything is unfolding exactly as it should, at exactly the pace it should, in exactly the way it should. The farmer's destroyed rice field taught him what no amount of instruction could teach, that forcing damages while trust allows growth. You do not need to destroy your own crops to learn this lesson. You can learn it now, gently, as you rest here. Practicing patience with yourself, with your process, with this very moment. Nothing is behind schedule. Nothing is happening too slowly. The rice grows at rice speed. Healing happens at healing speed. Understanding arrives at understanding speed. And you can rest in this knowing, releasing the strain of trying to make anything happen faster than its nature allows. Your whole being, body, breath, awareness, can settle into this patience now. Gentle, trusting, allowing, like a field after planting, quiet and still. while beneath the surface, in the dark soil, in the mystery of natural timing, growth is happening, always happening, even when you cannot see it, even when you are not thinking about it. Even now, as you rest here, something is unfolding, deepening, developing in its own perfect time. Trust this. Trust yourself. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Everything is already happening exactly as it should. A young monk named Sudina was consumed by comparison. He would watch the other monks and measure himself constantly. That monk meditates longer, I am not disciplined enough. That monk speaks with more wisdom, I am not insightful enough. That monk is more respected by the teacher, I am not progressing fast enough. Every day was an endless stream of measuring, comparing, finding himself lacking. One afternoon, after a particularly painful session of comparing himself to an older, more accomplished monk, Sudina sat beneath a tree in despair. The Buddha, seeing his suffering, came and sat beside him. "Teacher," Sudina said, his voice tight with frustration, "I see how far others have progressed, and I feel so far behind. No matter how much I practice, I cannot seem to catch up. Will I ever be good enough?" The Buddha picked up 2 stones from the ground, one smooth and round, worn by water, the other rough and jagged, freshly broken from a larger rock. He held them out to Sudina. "Tell me," the Buddha said, "which stone is the better stone?" Sudina looked at them, confused. I do not know. They are different. The smooth one has been shaped by water over time. The rough one is newly formed. Each is simply what it is." "Exactly," the Buddha said with a smile. "Each stone has traveled a different path. The smooth stone has been tumbled in rivers for perhaps thousands of years. The rough stone has just broken free from the mountain. To compare them and ask which is better makes no sense. They are at different stages of completely different journeys." He placed both stones in Sudina's hands. "You keep comparing yourself to others, asking why you are not where they are, but you are not walking their path. You did not start where they started. You have not had their experiences, their challenges, their particular conditions. You are walking your own path, at your own pace, shaped by your own unique circumstances. To compare yourself to anyone else is as meaningless as asking which of these stones is the better stone." The Buddha leaned closer. "That monk you envy who meditates for hours, perhaps he has fewer responsibilities than you. Perhaps his mind is naturally more calm. Perhaps he started practicing 20 years before you did. His practice is his practice. Your practice is yours. There is no race. There is no competition. There is only your own honest effort, your own sincere engagement with your own life." Sudina felt something loosen in his chest. He had been creating so much suffering by believing there was some standard he should be meeting, some pace he should be keeping up with. But the Buddha was showing him that this entire framework was false. "But how do I know if I am making progress?" Sudina asked. "If I cannot compare myself to others, how do I measure my growth?" The Buddha said, "You compare yourself only to yourself, not to who you are compared to others, but to who you were yesterday, last month, last year. Are you kinder than you were? More patient? Less reactive? More aware of your patterns? This is the only comparison that matters. And even this should be held lightly, because some days you will seem to move forward, and some days you will seem to move backward. Growth is not a straight line for anyone," he continued. "A seed planted in rich soil with abundant water will grow differently than a seed planted in rocky soil with little rain. Does this make one seed better than the other? No. Each is doing the best it can with the conditions it has been given. You are doing the best you can with the conditions you have been given, your particular body, your particular mind, your particular history, your particular challenges." The Buddha stood and gestured toward the garden where many monks were working. "Look at this garden. Every plant is different. Some grow tall quickly. Some grow slowly but develop deep roots. Some bloom early. Some bloom late. Some produce fruit. Some produce flowers. Would you say the roses are better than the herbs? the tall trees better than the low bushes. Each has its own nature, its own timing, its own way of contributing to the whole. And so it is with people. In the days that followed, whenever Sudhina found himself slipping into comparison, he would remember the two stones. He would remember that he was not in a race, that there was no standard to meet except his own honest effort. And gradually, the painful habit of measuring himself against others began to dissolve. He discovered something surprising. When he stopped comparing, he started noticing his own actual growth. Small things he had never valued before became significant. He noticed he was less quick to anger than he had been. He noticed he could sit longer in discomfort without needing to escape. He noticed he was more honest with himself about his motivations. These were not dramatic achievements that others would notice or praise, but they were real. They were his. And he also discovered that when he stopped comparing himself to others, he could actually appreciate them. That monk who meditated for hours was no longer a standard he failed to meet, but simply another human being doing his practice. Sudhina could respect his dedication without feeling diminished by it. That monk who spoke with wisdom was no longer evidence of his own inadequacy, but a gift to learn from. The stones the Buddha had shown him remained by his meditation cushion, a daily reminder that comparison is meaningless, that each being has their own path, their own pace, their own perfect timing. This teaching touches one of the deepest sources of modern suffering. We live in a world of constant comparison. Social media shows us carefully curated highlights of others' lives. We see what others have achieved and measure our own progress against theirs. We forget that we are seeing only the surface, only the outcome, not the full story of their journey, their struggles, their particular circumstances. And so we suffer, not because we are actually failing, but because we are comparing our insides to others' outsides. We are comparing our beginning to someone else's middle. We are comparing our rough stone to someone else's polished one, forgetting that the polished stone has been tumbling in the river for years longer. Where are you doing this in your own life right now? Who are you comparing yourself to? What standard are you failing to meet that was never your standard to begin with? Maybe you look at someone's career and feel behind. Maybe you look at someone's relationship and feel your own is lacking. Maybe you look at someone's spiritual practice, their creativity, their body, their peace, and you measure yourself against them and find yourself wanting. But you are not them. You did not start where they started. You have not walked their path. You have your own completely unique set of circumstances, challenges, gifts, limitations. To compare is to create suffering out of nothing. Right now, you can practice releasing comparison, not just intellectually understanding that comparison is unhelpful, but actually feeling what it is like to let go of measuring yourself against anyone else. You are simply here, breathing, being, not ahead or behind, not winning or losing, not better or worse, just here, just you, just this. Your breath is not competing with anyone else's breath. Your heartbeat is not trying to be more impressive than any other heartbeat. Your body simply does what it does, at its own pace, in its own way. It does not compare itself to other bodies. It simply is. Can your whole being rest in this same freedom from comparison? Can you simply be here, as you are, without needing to measure yourself against anyone, without needing to be further along than you are, without needing to prove that you are keeping up with some imaginary standard? Feel what happens when you drop comparison even for a moment. There is space, suddenly. Relief. The constant tension of measuring and evaluating can ease. You do not need to be anyone other than who you are. You do not need to be at any point in your journey other than exactly where you are. Your body can rest more deeply with this understanding. Your shoulders do not need to carry the weight of comparison. Your jaw does not need to clench against the fear of not being enough. Your belly can be soft, not trying to prove anything, not holding against judgment. You are your own unique expression of life. Your path is your path. Your timing is your timing. Your stone has been shaped by the particular river you have traveled through, and it is exactly as it should be for this moment. not better or worse than any other stone. Simply itself, simply real, simply here. And in being simply yourself, without comparison, without competition, without the exhausting need to measure up, you discover a peace that was impossible when you were constantly evaluating. You discover that you are enough. You have always been enough. Not because you have achieved anything or proven anything, but simply because you are. Rest in this truth now. No one to compare yourself to. No standard to meet. No race to win. Just this gentle being here, breathing softly, releasing the burden of comparison, discovering the quiet joy of simply being yourself. Exactly as you are, exactly where you are, complete and whole in this very moment. In a small monastery lived a monk named Ananda who had developed an unusual problem. He had become so good at helping others that he had completely forgotten how to receive help himself. Whenever someone needed guidance, he was there. When someone was sick, he tended to them. When someone was struggling, he listened. But when others tried to care for him, he would politely decline. "I am fine," he would say. "Others need your help more than I do." The truth was that Ananda was not fine. He was exhausted, his body ached, his heart felt heavy. But he had built his entire identity around being the helper, the strong one, the one who needed nothing. To admit he needed help felt like admitting weakness, like failing at the very thing that gave his life meaning. One rainy season, Ananda became ill. Not dangerously so, but enough that he should have rested. Instead, he continued his duties, continued caring for others, continued pretending he was well. The Buddha watched this with concern. One evening, the Buddha came to Ananda's small dwelling. He found Ananda shivering with fever, still trying to mend another monk's torn robe. "Ananda," the Buddha said gently, "put down that robe. You are not well. Let me help you." Ananda immediately shook his head. "Teacher, I am fine. Really, this is nothing. Please, do not trouble yourself with me." The Buddha sat down and looked at him steadily. "Why do you refuse help?" Ananda was quiet for a long moment. Then, quietly, he said, "Because if I need help, then I am weak. If I am weak, then I am a burden. I would rather suffer alone than be a burden to anyone." The Buddha's eyes filled with compassion. "And where did you learn this? Who taught you that receiving help makes you a burden?" Ananda's eyes grew wet. I do not know. I have always believed this, that strong people do not need anything from others, that needing help is shameful." The Buddha leaned forward. "Let me tell you something essential. The ability to receive is as important as the ability to give. Perhaps more important. When you refuse to receive help, you do two things. First, you deny others the joy and growth that comes from being of service. And second, you create a wall around yourself. A wall that says, I am separate from you. I do not need what all humans need: support, care, connection." He continued, "You have become so identified with being the helper that you have forgotten you are also human. You have needs. You have limitations. You get tired. You get sick. You struggle. This is not weakness. This is being alive. And when you pretend you have no needs, you create a false version of yourself, an image of someone who is always strong, always capable, always fine. And this image becomes a prison." Ananda felt tears sliding down his face. The Buddha was right. He had been performing strength for so long that he had forgotten how to be vulnerable, how to be real. "But what if people see me as weak?" Ananda asked. "What if they lose respect for me?" The Buddha smiled. "People do not respect invulnerability. They respect authenticity. They respect someone who can admit, I am struggling, or I need help, or I cannot do this alone. This honesty creates connection. It gives others permission to be honest about their own struggles. Your willingness to be helped is actually a gift to others." He stood and gently helped Ananda lie down. "Now, let me tend to you. Not because you are weak, but because you are human. Not because you have failed, but because receiving care is part of being in a community. We are not meant to be self-sufficient islands. We are meant to need each other, to help each other, to flow back and forth between giving and receiving." As the Buddha cared for him, bringing water, adjusting his blanket, sitting with him in his discomfort, Ananda felt something inside him begin to crack open. All the years of holding himself apart, of being the strong one, of denying his own needs, it had been so lonely. And now, in receiving the Buddha's care, he felt a warmth he had not felt in years. The warmth of being seen in his vulnerability, of being cared for despite his imperfection, of being held in his humanness. Over the following weeks, as Ananda recovered, he noticed a change. When others offered help, he found himself saying, "Yes, thank you," instead of "No, I am fine." And something remarkable happened. His relationships deepened. People felt closer to him. They shared more honestly with him because he was now sharing honestly with them. The wall he had built around himself, the wall of invulnerability, had been keeping connection out, and he discovered that receiving help did not diminish him. If anything, it made him more effective in helping others, because now he understood from direct experience what it felt like to need support, to admit struggle, to let someone else carry part of the weight. This teaching speaks to something many of us carry: the belief that needing help is shameful, that vulnerability is weakness, that we should be able to handle everything ourselves. We have learned to associate strength with independence, with not needing anything from anyone, and so we suffer alone, exhausted and overwhelmed, rather than admitting we could use support. But true strength includes the ability to say, "I need help." True courage includes the willingness to be vulnerable, to admit you are struggling, to let others see you in your imperfection. The people who seem strongest are often those who can acknowledge their limitations and ask for what they need. Where are you refusing to receive help right now? Where are you pretending to be fine when you are not? Where are you carrying burdens alone because you believe admitting struggle makes you weak? What would happen if you allowed yourself to receive, to accept the care, the support, the help that is being offered? You do not have to carry everything alone. You do not have to be strong all the time. You do not have to pretend you have no needs. Being human means needing things: rest, support, kindness, help. And allowing yourself to receive these things is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is honoring the truth of your humanity. Right now, in this moment, you are receiving. You are receiving rest. You are receiving these teachings. You are receiving the support of whatever you are lying on, the air you are breathing, the darkness that holds you. And this receiving requires no shame, no apology. You can simply allow it. Feel your body receiving support right now. The surface beneath you is holding you. You do not have to hold yourself up. You can let gravity do its work. You can receive this support without earning it, without proving you deserve it. It is simply here for you. Your breath is being received into your lungs without effort. You do not have to work for it or prove you are worthy of it. It simply comes, breath after breath, given freely, received openly. Can you extend this same quality of receptivity to other areas of your life? Can you imagine letting someone help you without feeling weak? Can you imagine admitting, "I am tired," or "I am struggling," or "I could use support," without apologizing for your humanness? The Buddha showed Ananda that receiving is not a burden on others, it is a gift. It allows them to be of service. It creates connection. It acknowledges that we are all in this together, all needing each other, all flowing between giving and receiving in the natural rhythm of community. Your whole body can soften with this permission to receive. Your shoulders do not have to carry everything. They can drop, releasing weight you were never meant to hold alone. Your jaw can unclench, releasing the tightness of always having to be strong. Your chest can open, allowing yourself to be seen, to be vulnerable, to be imperfectly human. You do not have to be the person who needs nothing. You do not have to maintain the image of invulnerability. You can be real. You can be human. You can have needs and struggles and limitations, and this does not diminish your value. It simply makes you real. Feel the peace that comes from dropping the burden of having to be strong all the time. Feel the relief of admitting you are human. Feel the warmth of allowing yourself to be cared for, to be supported, to be held not because you have earned it, but simply because you are here, you are alive, you are part of the great web of beings who need each other. Your belly can be completely soft now, not holding, not defending, not proving anything. Your legs can be heavy and still, no longer carrying you anywhere, just resting, just receiving support. Your whole being can settle into this understanding. It is okay to need help. It is okay to receive care. It is okay to be human, with all the vulnerability and need that humanness includes. Rest in this permission. Rest in this truth. You are allowed to receive. You are allowed to need. You are allowed to be cared for. Not someday when you have proven yourself worthy, but now, exactly as you are, imperfect and struggling and beautifully, ordinarily human. There was a potter named Yashodhara who was known throughout her village for creating the most exquisite vessels. But what no one saw was the violence she directed toward herself in the process. Every time she made a mistake, every cracked pot, every uneven rim, every glaze that did not turn out as planned, she would berate herself mercilessly. Stupid, she would mutter. Clumsy, worthless. How could you be so careless? She spoke to herself with a harshness she would never direct at anyone else. If a student made the same mistake, she would say gently, "This is how we learn. Try again." But with herself, there was no such kindness. Only criticism, judgment, endless demands for perfection. One day, the Buddha came through her village and saw her working in her studio. He watched as she shaped a beautiful vase on her wheel, and then, just as she was lifting it off, it collapsed. Immediately, he heard her vicious self-talk. "Idiot, after all these years, you still can't even center properly. You're useless." The Buddha waited until she had calmed slightly, then asked, "May I ask you a question?" Startled to see she had a visitor, Yashodhara nodded, embarrassed. "If a friend came to you and made a mistake while working on their pottery, how would you speak to them?" Yashodhara thought for a moment. "I would tell them that mistakes happen, that this is part of the learning process, that even experienced potters have pieces that fail. I would encourage them to try again without being so hard on themselves." "I see," the Buddha said. "And yet, when you make a mistake, you call yourself stupid, clumsy, useless. Why do you speak to yourself with such cruelty? Are you not deserving of the same kindness you would offer a friend?" Yashodhara felt her eyes sting with tears. She had never questioned this before. It had simply seemed natural, necessary even, to be harsh with herself. How else would she improve? How else would she maintain her standards? The Buddha sat down near her wheel. "Let me tell you something important. The voice you use with yourself becomes the foundation of your entire experience. When you are constantly harsh, constantly critical, constantly demanding perfection, you create an inner environment of fear and tension. And creativity, learning, growth, these cannot flourish in an environment of fear. They need spaciousness, gentleness, permission to fail." He gestured to her collapsed vase. "This pot fell apart. That is a fact. But everything else, the judgment that you are stupid, the belief that you should not make mistakes, the harsh criticism, all of that is optional. All of that is suffering you are adding to a simple event." Yashodhara wiped her eyes. "But if I am not hard on myself, will I not become lazy? Will I not stop trying to improve?" The Buddha smiled. "Has being harsh with yourself made you happy? Has it made you a better potter? Or has it simply made you anxious and miserable while you create?" Yashodhara had to admit the truth. Her self-criticism had not made her more skilled. If anything, It made her more tense, more afraid to try new techniques, more paralyzed by the fear of failure. Her best work came not from beating herself up, but from those rare moments when she was relaxed, playful, allowing herself to experiment. Self-compassion is not self-indulgence, the Buddha said. It is the recognition that you are a human being, and human beings make mistakes. They have limitations. They fail sometimes. When you can meet your mistakes with the same kindness you would offer a friend, something changes. You become less afraid, less defended, more willing to try, to risk, to grow. He continued, think of it this way. Imagine you are teaching a young child to walk. When the child falls, do you scream at them? Do you call them stupid and worthless? Of course not. You encourage them. You help them up. You acknowledge that falling is part of learning to walk. And so they keep trying, keep falling, keep learning, without shame, without harsh judgment. Why would you treat yourself any differently? From that day forward, Yashodhara began to practice self-compassion. When a pot cracked, instead of immediately attacking herself, she would pause. She would take a breath. She would say to herself what she might say to a student. This happens. You are learning. Try again. At first, this felt strange, even fake. But gradually, she noticed something shifting. She became more relaxed at her wheel, more willing to experiment, less afraid of failure. And paradoxically, as she became gentler with herself, her work actually improved. The harsh inner critic had not been helping her. It had been creating tension that interfered with her natural skill. This teaching is perhaps one of the most life-changing of all, because most of us carry a harsh inner critic that speaks to us in ways we would never tolerate from another person. We call ourselves names. We judge ourselves mercilessly. We demand perfection and then punish ourselves brutally for every failure to achieve it. And we believe this is necessary. We believe that if we are not hard on ourselves, we will become lazy, complacent, mediocre. But the opposite is true. Harsh self-criticism does not motivate lasting change. It creates fear, shame, and resistance. Real growth happens in an environment of safety, encouragement, and compassion. What does your inner voice sound like right now? How do you speak to yourself when you make a mistake? When you fail to meet your own standards? When you have a limitation or struggle? Is your inner voice kind, encouraging, supportive? Or is it harsh, critical, punishing? Most of us would be shocked if we heard someone speaking to another person the way we speak to ourselves inside our own minds. We would recognize it as verbal abuse, yet we somehow believe it is acceptable, even necessary, to treat ourselves this way. The Buddha invites you to practice self-compassion. This does not mean lowering your standards or accepting mediocrity. It means treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer someone you care about. It means recognizing that you are human, that you will make mistakes, that you have limitations, and that this is okay. This is not a failure of character. This is simply what it means to be alive. Right now, bring to mind something you have been criticizing yourself for. Maybe a mistake you made. Maybe something about your body or personality that you judge. Maybe a way you feel you are not good enough. And notice the voice you use when thinking about this. Is it harsh, critical, demanding? Now, imagine a dear friend came to you with this exact same struggle. They made the same mistake. They had the same limitation. They felt the same way about themselves. How would you speak to them? What would you say? You would probably be kind, understanding. You would remind them that everyone makes mistakes, that having limitations is part of being human, that their worth is not dependent on being perfect. You would offer compassion. Can you offer yourself this same compassion? Can you speak to yourself the way you would speak to a friend? Not with harsh criticism, but with gentle understanding. Not with demands for perfection, but with acknowledgement of your sincere effort. This practice of self-compassion is revolutionary. It changes your entire relationship with yourself and therefore with life. When you are no longer at war with yourself, constantly judging and criticizing, You find a peace that is not dependent on being perfect. You find a gentleness that allows you to try, to fail, to learn, to grow, without the additional burden of harsh self-judgment. Feel what happens in your body when you practice self-compassion, even for a moment. The tightness can ease, the bracing can soften, your heart can feel warmer, less defended. Your whole being can relax slightly when it is no longer being constantly attacked from within. Your body has never judged you. Your heart has beaten faithfully for every moment of your life, never criticizing you for your mistakes. Your lungs have breathed for you without complaint, even when you have been harsh with yourself. Your body simply does what it does, caring for you unconditionally, asking nothing in return. Can your mind learn from your body's wisdom? Can you care for yourself with the same unconditional kindness your body has always offered you? Not because you are perfect, but simply because you are here, you are alive. You are doing your best with the awareness and resources you have. Your jaw can soften completely now, releasing any tightness related to harsh self-judgment. Your throat can open, no longer constricted by swallowed criticism. Your chest can expand, your heart no longer needing to defend against attacks from your own mind. Your belly can be at complete ease, no longer tight with the shame of not being good enough. You are enough, not because you have achieved perfection, but because perfection was never the point. You are a human being, learning and growing and making mistakes and trying again. And this is beautiful, this is worthy, this is enough. The harsh inner critic can rest now. It has been working so hard, believing it was helping you, believing it was necessary. But you can let it know, I am okay. I do not need to be attacked to grow. I can learn through kindness. I can improve through encouragement. The harsh voice can rest, and in its place, a gentler voice can emerge. The voice that says, you are doing your best, you are learning, you are human and imperfect and completely acceptable exactly as you are. This is the voice of self-compassion. This is the voice that allows real transformation, real growth, real peace. Rest in this gentleness now. Let every part of you feel what it is like to be treated with kindness, with patience, with compassion. Not someday, when you have finally become perfect, but now, exactly as you are, with all your flaws and struggles and beautiful, ordinary humanity. A merchant once traveled to see the Buddha carrying an enormous sack filled with stones. Each stone, he explained, represented a regret. This stone was for a harsh word spoken to his wife 10 years ago. That stone was for a business opportunity he had missed. Another for the time he disappointed his father. Another for a friendship he had let fade. He had been carrying these stones everywhere for years, and the weight was breaking his back. Teacher, the merchant said, setting down his heavy burden with a groan, I cannot seem to let these regrets go. Every day I remember my mistakes, my failures, the things I wish I had done differently. How do I free myself from this weight? The Buddha looked at the bag of stones, then at the merchant's exhausted face. Tell me, he said, when you made these mistakes, did you intend to cause harm? Or were you doing the best you could with the understanding you had at that time? The merchant thought carefully. I was doing my best. I did not know then what I know now. If I had known better, I would have acted differently. Exactly, the Buddha said, and this is true for every mistake you have ever made. In each moment, you were doing the best you could with the awareness, resources, and circumstances you had available. You cannot judge your past self by the standards of your present self. That person who spoke harshly to his wife, he did not have the wisdom you have gained since then. That person who missed the business opportunity, he could not see what is obvious to you now with hindsight. The Buddha picked up one of the stones. This regret assumes that you should have known better at the time. But how could you have? You had not yet learned what you have since learned. You had not yet experienced what you have since experienced. You were operating with the consciousness you had then, not the consciousness you have now, he continued. Regret serves a purpose only if it leads to learning and growth. If you touch a hot stove and burn yourself. The pain teaches you not to do it again. The lesson is valuable. But if you spend the rest of your life carrying around the pain of that burn, replaying it endlessly, beating yourself up for having touched the stove, this serves no purpose. This is just suffering added to suffering. The merchant nodded slowly, beginning to understand. So here is what you must do, the Buddha said. With each regret, ask yourself, have I learned from this experience? Have I grown? Have I changed my behavior because of what I learned? If the answer is yes, then the experience has served its purpose. The lesson has been received. You do not need to keep carrying the original pain. You can extract the wisdom and release the weight. He gestured to the bag of stones. You have been carrying these regrets, as if punishing yourself will somehow undo the past. But it will not. The past is already complete. It cannot be changed. The only question is, will you let these old mistakes continue to poison your present, or will you honor what you learned and let the weight go? The merchant looked at his collection of stones, years of accumulated guilt and self-punishment. But what about making amends? What about the people I hurt? The Buddha nodded. If you can make amends, do so. But understand that making amends is about releasing others from suffering, not about earning your own freedom from guilt. Whether or not others forgive you, you must eventually forgive yourself. Not because what you did was okay, but because carrying regret forever helps no one. It does not heal the past. It only ensures that your present remains trapped there. From that day, the merchant began the practice of releasing his regrets. One by one, he would pick up a stone, remember the situation it represented, ask himself what he had learned, and if he had truly changed his behavior as a result. If he had, he would acknowledge the lesson and set the stone down not to be carried anymore. Some stones required making amends first. Some required genuine apology. Some required changed behavior going forward. But once the lesson was integrated and any necessary amends were made, each stone could be released. It took time. Some stones were harder to put down than others, but gradually the burden lightened. His back straightened. His steps became lighter, and he discovered something profound. He could remember his mistakes without being crushed by them. He could acknowledge his past imperfections without defining himself by them. The past had become teacher rather than torturer. This teaching speaks to something nearly all of us struggle with: the weight of regret, the burden of past mistakes, the endless replay of "if only I had." We carry our regrets like the merchant carried his stones, believing somehow that the weight proves we have learned, that the suffering demonstrates we have changed, that the punishment ensures we will not make the same mistake again. But regret that has served its purpose, that has genuinely taught you something and changed your behavior, does not need to be carried anymore. The lesson remains, the wisdom stays, but the weight, the guilt, the endless self-punishment, these can be released. What regrets are you carrying right now? What old mistakes are you still punishing yourself for? What past versions of yourself are you still judging with the consciousness you have now, forgetting that they did not have access to what you have since learned? Think about one specific regret. Now ask yourself honestly, have you learned from this experience? Are you different now because of it? Would you make the same choice again today? If the answer is no, if you have genuinely learned and grown, then the experience has already served its purpose. The continued suffering does not make you a better person. It just makes you suffer. This does not mean your mistakes did not matter. This does not mean others were not hurt. If you can make amends, make them. If you can apologize, apologize. If you can change your behavior going forward, do so. But once you have done what can be done, once you have genuinely learned, the stone can be set down. Your past self made mistakes because they were your past self operating with limited awareness, limited skill, limited understanding. Your present self has the benefit of hindsight, of experience, of lessons learned. To judge your past self by your present standards is like expecting a child to have the wisdom of an adult. It makes no sense. It creates only suffering. Feel into the possibility of releasing one regret right now, not forgetting it, not pretending it never happened, but extracting the lesson and setting down the weight. What did this experience teach you? How are you different because of it? Can you honor the growth while releasing the endless punishment? Your body is already showing you how to do this. Your body has made countless mistakes. It has stumbled, fallen, gotten injured, gotten sick, but your body does not carry regret. When you cut your finger, your body heals the wound. It does not keep reopening the cut every day to punish itself for having been careless. It learns, it heals, it moves forward. Your mind can learn from your body's wisdom. Learn, integrate the lesson, heal, move forward. The wound does not need to be reopened daily. The mistake does not need to be relived endlessly. The past can be acknowledged, learned from, and then allowed to be past. Feel your body becoming heavier now with the relief of setting down weight you have been carrying. Your shoulders can drop, no longer holding the burden of old regrets. Your back can straighten, no longer bent under the weight of stones you can choose to release. Your chest can open, your breath can deepen. Your whole being can experience what it feels like to be freed from the endless replay of past mistakes. You were doing your best then with what you knew. You are doing your best now with what you know. This is all anyone can do. This is enough. You do not need to carry the stones anymore. The lessons remain. The growth is real. But the punishment can end. Your jaw can be completely soft now, no longer tight with the tension of unresolved guilt. Your throat can open, no longer constricted with words you wish you had said differently years ago. Your hands can rest with palms open and empty, not clutching old regrets, not gripping past mistakes. Just open, just free, just here. The past is complete. It cannot be changed, no matter how much you replay it, how much you wish it were different, how much you punish yourself for it. All that can change is your relationship to it. You can acknowledge what happened, honor what you learned, and release the weight. The past can become teacher rather than prison. Every breath you take right now is fresh, new, not burdened by what came before. Your body knows this. It breathes this breath, not yesterday's breath, not tomorrow's breath, just this one, and then the next one. Each breath a new beginning, a fresh start, an opportunity to be here now rather than trapped in what was. Your whole being can rest in this understanding now. The regrets can be set down. The stones can be released. You have learned, you have grown, you have changed. The punishment phase is complete. You are free to be here now, in this moment, no longer defined by past mistakes, no longer carrying weight that no longer serves you. The merchant left his bag of stones at the Buddha's feet and walked away lighter than he had been in years. You can do the same, not literally, but in your heart. Set down the regrets that have already taught you everything they can teach. Honor the growth, release the weight, and discover the lightness, the freedom, the peace of being here now, unburdened, forgiven by yourself, free. A woman named Malika came to the Buddha in a state of deep confusion. She had been practicing meditation diligently for months, attending teachings, following all the precepts. Yet she felt no closer to peace than when she had started. In fact, she felt more agitated than ever. "Teacher," she said, frustration evident in her voice, "I have tried everything. I sit for hours. I focus on my breath. I try to empty my mind, but the thoughts keep coming. When will I finally achieve the peace everyone speaks of? When will I finally be free?" The Buddha listened quietly, then asked, "Malika, when you sit to meditate, what are you doing?" "I am trying to stop my thoughts," she said immediately. "I am trying to achieve stillness. I am trying to reach enlightenment." The Buddha smiled gently. "And how is this trying working for you?" Malika's shoulders slumped. "It is not working at all. The harder I try, the more thoughts come. The more I fight for stillness, the more agitated I become. I feel like I am failing at something that should be simple. The Buddha gestured to a nearby pond. Do you see that water? It is cloudy and disturbed because people have been walking through it, stirring up mud from the bottom. Tell me, how would you make this water clear? Malika thought for a moment. I suppose I could try to strain out all the mud, or maybe add something to make the particles settle. Or, the Buddha said, you could simply stop disturbing it. If you leave the water alone, if you stop stirring it, the mud will settle on its own. The water's natural state is clarity. You do not have to create clarity. You only have to stop creating disturbance. He turned to face her fully. This is what you have misunderstood about practice. You believe you must achieve peace, create stillness, force your mind into some special state. But peace is your natural state. Stillness is what remains when you stop creating disturbance. You are not trying to become something you are not. You are learning to stop doing the things that obscure what you already are. Malika felt something shift in her understanding. So, I should not try to stop my thoughts? Thoughts arise on their own, the Buddha said. This is natural. The problem is not the thoughts themselves. The problem is your relationship to them. You fight them. You judge yourself for having them. You try to force them away. And all of this fighting creates more disturbance, like stirring the pond even more vigorously. He continued, imagine you are sitting by a stream. Leaves float by on the surface. Do you jump in and try to stop the leaves from floating? Do you become upset that leaves exist? No. You simply watch them pass. Some leaves are beautiful. Some are broken. Some drift by quickly. Some get caught on a rock for a while. But you do not need to control the stream. You simply observe what passes. Your thoughts are like these leaves, the Buddha said. They float through your awareness. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant, some pass quickly, some linger, but none of them require your interference. You can simply observe them without trying to control them, without judging yourself for having them, without believing you must stop them in order to find peace, Malika asked. But what about emotions? When I feel angry or sad or anxious, should I just let these be as well? The Buddha nodded. Emotions are also like weather patterns moving through the sky of your awareness. Sometimes there is sunshine. Sometimes there are storms. The sky does not try to control the weather. It simply allows whatever weather is present to be present. And what happens to every weather pattern, whether pleasant or unpleasant? It passes, Malika said quietly. Yes, it passes. All emotions pass if you do not feed them with resistance or stories or attempts to force them away. When you feel anger and you tell yourself, I should not feel this. This is wrong. I am a spiritual person and should be beyond anger. What happens? The anger intensifies. You have added resistance and judgment to the original emotion. But if you simply notice there is anger here, without the story, without the judgment, the anger arises, peaks, and passes like a wave in the ocean. The Buddha leaned closer. The practice is not about achieving some perfect state where you never think or feel. The practice is about learning to allow everything that arises to arise, to pass through without adding resistance. This is what creates peace, not the absence of thoughts and emotions, but the absence of fighting with thoughts and emotions. He continued, you have been treating your mind like an enemy that must be conquered. But your mind is not the enemy. It is simply doing what minds do, thinking, feeling, processing. When you stop treating it as something that must be controlled or defeated, when you simply allow it to be what it is, something remarkable happens. The very thing you are fighting against begins to settle naturally. In the days that followed, Malika completely changed her approach to practice. Instead of trying to force her mind into stillness, she simply sat and observed. Thought arising, observed. Emotion appearing, observed. Sensation occurring, observed. No fighting, no judgment. No trying to change anything, just allowing. just noticing, just being present with whatever was actually happening. And something extraordinary occurred. Without her constant interference, without her endless trying and forcing and fighting, her mind began to settle on its own. Like the pond when left undisturbed, the natural clarity began to reveal itself. Not because she had achieved anything or forced anything, but because she had stopped creating disturbance. She discovered that peace was not something she had to create or earn or achieve. It was what remained when she stopped fighting with reality, when she stopped demanding that her thoughts be different, that her emotions be different, that her experience be different. Peace was the natural state that emerged when the fighting stopped. This teaching is profound because most of us approach our inner life exactly like Malika did. We believe peace requires achieving some special state, a perfectly quiet mind, a consistently calm emotional state, an absence of negative thoughts. And when we do not achieve this, we judge ourselves as failing, as not spiritual enough, as doing something wrong. But the Buddha is showing us something different. Peace does not come from controlling or conquering your inner experience. It comes from allowing your inner experience to be what it is, without adding resistance. You do not have to stop thinking to find peace. You only have to stop fighting with your thoughts. You do not have to eliminate emotions. You only have to stop judging them or trying to force them away. Right now, you can practice this allowing. Notice what is actually present in your experience. Maybe there are thoughts drifting through. Maybe there are sensations in your body, some comfortable, some not. Maybe there are emotions subtle or strong. Whatever is here, can you let it be here without trying to change it? Not passive resignation, but active allowing. This thought is here, okay. This sensation is here, okay. This emotion is here, okay. Not feeding it with stories, not fighting it with resistance, just letting it be. Like leaves floating on a stream, like clouds moving through the sky, like weather passing through. Your body already knows how to do this. Your heartbeat does not try to be different than it is. Your breath does not resist itself. Your digestion happens without requiring your approval or control. Your body simply allows the natural processes to unfold. Can your mind learn this same quality of allowing? Feel your whole being settling now. Like the pond when the stirring stops. You are not trying to create some special state. You are not forcing anything. You are simply allowing what is already happening to happen. Thoughts can be here. Sensations can be here. This moment can be exactly what it is. Your shoulders can release any remaining effort to control or achieve. Your jaw can soften, no longer tight with the strain of trying. Your hands can rest completely open, not grasping for some special experience, not pushing away what is here. Just open, just allowing. The mind will think. This is what minds do. You do not have to stop your mind from thinking to find peace. You only have to stop believing that thoughts are a problem. Stop fighting with them. Stop judging yourself for having them. Thoughts arise. Thoughts pass. Like leaves on a stream. Like clouds in the sky. Natural. Not a problem. Not something that needs to be fixed. Your breath moves in and out without your trying. Your awareness is here without your effort. And beneath all the thoughts, beneath all the sensations, beneath all the passing weather of your experience, there is this quiet, allowing presence. Not doing anything, not trying to become anything, just here, just aware, just allowing everything to be exactly what it is. This is the peace the Buddha pointed to, not a forced stillness, not an achieved state, but the natural clarity that emerges when you stop disturbing the water, when you stop fighting, when you stop trying so hard. When you simply allow this moment to be exactly what it is. Rest here now. Nothing to achieve, nothing to become, nothing to control. Just this gentle allowing, this quiet presence, this natural peace that was always here, waiting beneath all your trying, all your fighting, all your striving, already here, already complete, already free. The water is settling. The mud is sinking to the bottom. The natural clarity is revealing itself. not because you are doing anything special, simply because you have stopped disturbing what was always already clear.